Does anyone else remember the weird running glitch from Call of Duty World at War? Or what about glitching out of bounds in Modern Warfare 2? Remember how in Black Ops 2 bodies could weirdly stretch out like this? Or of course Call of Duty Ghosts was, well, Call of Duty Ghosts doing its weird face stretching. But we decided to put together the ultimate Call of Duty glitch video where we looked at Call of Duty glitches from every single Call of Duty game. 3 hours. We're gonna start with Call of Duty 4 and make our way through every single Call of Duty title in chronological order. Then we'll circle back and look at the original Call of Duty Trilogy, and we'll even look at some of the weird spin-offs and handheld glitches at the end as well. We also have chapters down below so you can go to your favorite COD.
College arouse bound in blood.
Now before we start looking at glitches, I have to say, it's been a walk down memory lane looking at some of this old footage. It's like a time capsule, sometimes seeing the lowest quality recording that is available, and you hear some interesting things watching these videos.
It's kind of useless because you die.
So sometimes we captured the glitches ourselves with like modern capture technology, but other times we just like used community videos from way back in the day, even if the footage is a little scuffed. And we found some gold and treasure while looking through this.
Hello, this is Grandma69666 and my special partner, XECEX Jesus. He is in most of my videos, and Virus and MLG Creed. We're outside the map of shipment right now.
Now for this video, we're going to start things off with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. It might seem like a weird Call of Duty to start things off on, but COD 4 marked the birth of Call of Duty becoming a widespread, massive success, as it coincided with the rising popularity of console online playing from Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. And because of that, people could share glitches or work together to find new secrets and glitches along the way, and Call of Duty 4 had a lot. For example, there was a game mode called Old School Mode, which was essentially a mode that had weapons around the map versus create a class. It was supposed to emulate the style of FPS games, and you could even jump higher than what you could in normal gameplay, almost reminiscent of Halo. Because of this added game mode that allowed you to jump higher, it meant that a lot of maps that were designed for normal Call of Duty movement could very easily be broken, and players went out of their way to try to find all of the secrets that this game had to offer. Like for instance, on the multiplayer map Crossfire, if you were playing on this old school mode, you could go over to this blown out building and do a series of jumps on the geometry of the map, making it to this infamous washing machine. And from there, there's a pretty challenging jump, but if you can make it up to the next area, you have access to the outer sections of the map, but also access to these very higher upper levels of the map. This became a huge popular map for games like Michael Myers, which were just like a stabby custom game. And I just remember everybody going over to that washing machine and living and dying by the possibility of pulling off the glitch or not pulling off the glitch before Michael Myers catches on. On the multiplayer map Showdown, you can actually get out of the center square area by doing a precise jump with a rocket launcher, revitalizing the OG rocket jumping strategy that was used in games to get extra height. I don't even know where to start on the map District, as there were all sorts of places that you could gain access to just by utilizing the old school game mode to get out of bounds. Now, some players on some of these maps were able to learn the strategy in old school and then find a way to get just enough height to get out of bounds on some of the main multiplayer maps, and then they could do it in a match-made game. But most of the time, these glitches were just harmless fun that people did in custom games. With a little bit of precise jumping and parkour, you can get on top of this roof over here on the multiplayer level Crash. It almost seems like this location was maybe actually intended for players to gain access to with precise jumping, but also maybe not. I don't know if this one fully counts as a glitch, but also on Crash there are real glitch locations where you can see through walls and stuff, so I don't know. It probably was a glitch, just maybe not as serious as the ones where you could see through walls. Kind of insane that by just standing on certain geometry you can get yourself into this corner where you can literally just see through the walls, but I mean, hey, this was something that was left in the game, and I guess that's something. Over on the multiplayer map Vacant, there was some very easy parkour, especially in the old school game type, where you could jump on top of some of these tables and get on top of the refrigerator. Then from there, get on this wood beam, and then you could jump up onto the top of this little outer area, this little workshop section. Then you could jump across this and get on top of the main building of Vacant, probably one of the easier out of bound glitches that were still featured in this game. Now back in the day when I was a squeaker playing these games, a series of glitches that always amazed me were known as elevator glitches, it seemed like magic. It was totally unfair, but it was worth risking everything to try to pull off one of these glitches. Essentially, if you would go to a specific spot where players would discover this glitch and wedge yourself underneath a platform and kind of force yourself to crouch, stand, and try to get yourself into like an invalid spot, sometimes the game would literally just elevate you up to the top of the map, and from there, the possibilities were endless as to where you could go and explore. This was a pretty challenging glitch to pull off, especially in a real multiplayer map, but it didn't require old school mode, so it was fair game. I mean, fair game to like a 12-year-old who wants to cheat in their game, if they could just pull off the glitch to get in the unfair position. I'll be honest, I never was skilled enough to rapidly pull off any of these glitches in a multiplayer game without getting killed, because someone would just walk by and I'm like staring at a wall trying to crouch jump or something. But I definitely tried from time to time because I had no shame. Like for instance, over on the multiplayer level countdown, there's this section where you can do this same elevator glitch we were just talking about and get yourself up to this higher section of the map above everything. It's not really the safest place to be. Someone could just shoot you very easily, but you could get up there. There was another elevator glitch on Showdown. There's a slightly different technique, but same glitch on Bog, where you can use a palm tree to elevate yourself up and out of the map as well. And that's honestly just a handful of some of the elevator glitches you could do in COD 4. There's quite a bit of them. This was before I think they realized this was a glitch and they had to like watch for it. And down the road, Call of Duty would be a lot quicker at cracking down on these types of glitches, patching them out of the game and making it harder for people to do elevator glitches. But back in 2007, it wasn't a challenge. If you knew how to do it, you could just do it, and there's a good chance it wouldn't even get patched out of the game. Also, there's this little glitch, if you wanted to explore a little bit, where you were able to jump and climb up on like ledges you're not supposed to get onto and explore the out of bounds area of Shipment, the smallest map, and still to this day probably one of the most remade and famous maps in Call of Duty history. I mean, think about how many times Shipment has come back. Maybe more than Nuketown? I mean, it was originally in COD 4, it almost made it into Modern Warfare 2. It was remade in Call of Duty Ghosts, Modern Warfare Remastered, Call of Duty World War II, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, Call of Duty Mobile, Call of Duty Vanguard, Modern Warfare 2, and technically Modern Warfare 3. Does anyone else remember on the map Overgrown, if you did a couple of jumps, you could get on top of this little like structure house here? I don't know if this one counted as a glitch, but I don't think people were intended to easily get up here either, so I don't know how this one sits. But I do remember playing a bunch of custom games where you get to snipe people on this map, and that was really fun actually. There is a surprising number of campaign glitches, which I guess shouldn't come to a surprise. This was a turning point for the modern era of Call of Duty campaigns, and there was just some interesting things. Like for instance, in the very first tutorial area where you have to run the pit, or I guess it's not the pit in this one. You know what I mean, the little training area where you have to run through it as quickly as possible, and there was that one achievement that always seemed impossibly fast, but deep down you knew you could do it if you tried hard enough, and yeah, it definitely is possible to get that achievement for beating it in such a short amount of time. But also, if you spend a lot of time in here because you're bored, there is a series of jumps that you can do to get to this little out of bounds area where you make this leap of faith and you're on this invisible barrier, like 10 feet off the ground, and you're just kind of chilling up here. Kind of neat, I think. On the campaign level, Charlies Don't Surf, there's actually a handful of little glitches you can do, but one of the most popular ones was this one where you do a series of like very precise walking and dropping and jumping, and essentially you can clip out of bounds of the map. Then from there, you can go all over the place and explore this level. And I think that this is probably one of the coolest ones because there's just such a wide area of land you can go and explore and just like kind of see how Call of Duty works, or how the outer sections of campaign levels are designed in lower detail, where you can clip through objects and whatnot. There's even things that you might uncover along the way, like a weird machine gun just randomly out there in the middle of nowhere. This level specifically actually has a pretty big reputation as being one of the most broken campaign levels in Call of Duty 4, and speedrunners definitely utilize it in their run because, hey, you can just fly through this mission if you're good at a little bit of parkour, and you can go right to the end of the level, so why not? I think that's cool. Also, I think it's worth noting that this glitch still works, even if you are playing on the remastered version of the game that came out later on. They kept most of the glitches intact in both the multiplayer and the campaign side of things, which is interesting. Also, on the remastered version of Call of Duty 4, on that last level, Mile High Club, that's really challenging to do on veteran difficulty, there is a cheese you can do where you like save and quit, and while it's saving, if you like dashboard out at the right exact time in the saving process, it can corrupt the save a little bit, I guess, and then you can reload the level from the checkpoint that you had originally saved on a lower difficulty. You up it to veteran difficulty, and then you complete the end of the level and you get the achievement without having to go through the challenge of doing it on a harder level. I wish I knew that before I spent hours and hours and hours trying to get this achievement, but also at the same time, are you really proud of yourself for finding a cheese workaround for this achievement? I mean, this is one of those classic achievements that, like, you know, is associated with a little bit of, like, respect. If there's a little clout you get, or chip on your shoulder if you went for this achievement the legitimate way back in the day. So, I don't know. I don't feel like this one's worth cheating, but it is one that does exist. Okay, so like 12 years ago, there was a YouTuber known as the Call of Duty Glitcher. And I don't know whatever happened to this guy, but he actually discovered quite a few campaign-related glitches on Call of Duty 4 back in the day, and did a series of videos on his channel and then just disappeared off the face of the earth. If you're out there, Call of Duty Glitcher, please comment on this video. I don't think he will, but how crazy would that be? Anyways, this guy went and found a ton of different glitches from various campaign levels and just broke them wide open. Like one shot, one kill. This one's challenging, but you can definitely get out of bounds with some precise, annoying jumps. And man, you can actually go way out of bounds. And this is one of those like city levels, so it's really cool to see like what was way out there, like weapons and stuff, or just different things. I think it's cool you can see like what the arms deal would have looked like up close ahead of time. The Call of Duty Glitcher also found a way out on the map The Sins of Our Father, and while this map isn't as interesting to get out of bounds and explore, the music choice that the Call of Duty Glitcher made for his video was definitely the most interesting part of his tutorial. Very 2007 Call of Duty Glitcher. Very cool. Over on the mission Safe House, you can jump on some crates that then give you access to this little rooftop, and then from there, if you make a precise jump onto a fence, you can get out of the bounds area of the map. And while there's not too much interesting going on this level specifically, if you run into a pit, you can fall under the map and get a cool view of what everything looks like from down below, like you're in hell, you know, where all the glitchers go. The campaign level Shock and Awe, really easy trick. You just run down this way to where this tank is supposed to block your way out of bounds, but if you have a rocket launcher, you can do the good old trusty rocket launcher jump backwards and get on top of the tank, and then from there, boom! Full access to the out of bounds area. It's one of the bigger areas you can go and explore, and seeing this tank up close and personal is interesting. I mean, look at it. Okay, now this next one is absolutely insane. This one is just a result of the Call of Duty engine maybe not working fully properly with all of the physics, but I found 3 different uploads of this same glitch, and all of them have literally some of the worst recording quality I have ever seen. It is the most scuffed 2007 recording. I think people were using their old phones pointed at their television, and it's like mobile quality, which was very low back in the day. But 3 separate videos, all of a floating tire, because sometimes explosions would off-put the tires and just make them float there. And I don't know, there's something so messed up and charming about these very low quality videos. So I appreciate whatever people out there decided to share these with the world back in the day, because now we get to look at them nowadays and be like, wow, that is a floating tire, but also, wow, this is some incredible recording quality. On the multiplayer map Pipeline, there's this underground area where you can see this indentation in the wall where there's like a fence covering it and there's these pipes running behind it. Essentially though, if a player jumps onto the fence, faces the wall, and goes prone, the player can kind of wedge themselves inside of the pipe or in the gate, and they're like in there hidden very well. This was a really big trick a lot of people used to use in Michael Myers back in those COD 4 days. There's also a trick you can do on the Bog campaign level where you can jump on a barrel, and then from that barrel you can rocket jump across and get to this like out of bounds area. Now if you want full access to the larger scope of this campaign level, you have to do quite a few specific runs and jumps and follow kind of a specific route. But if you do that, you get access to quite a different and unique area than a lot of the other out of bounds areas, just because this campaign level has a lot of detail going on outside of the playable area to, you know, make the atmosphere feel bigger and alive. So definitely one worth checking out if you're ever just like playing through COD 4 casually and you want to just see what's out there. On the campaign level All In, there is a very easy jump that you can do to get on top of this fence, and then from there you can just run over to the side here and you essentially get out of bounds as long as you don't fall off the fence early. Another one where you can kind of get a good view from underneath and see what the map looks like, but there's not really too much out of bounds worth exploring. One of the elevator glitches that I used to remember trying to get all of the time was back on that multiplayer level Block, which was like the old apartment buildings, and it was like, I don't know, like super communist looking. Is that Is that the right phrasing for that? I feel like I'm accidentally coming across as offensive. I don't mean it in a bad way, but I mean, I look at this building and I think, yeah, that's a communist building. Nonetheless, you could do that elevator glitch that we talked about earlier where you kind of line yourself up and you like crouch and jump and do a certain order of inputs, and then you just ding up to the top of the elevator and you are on top of some of the buildings on block, and this is such a cool glitch. Okay, then there's another glitch that's going to come up in the next Call of Duties we're going to talk about here in just a minute, but it also is used in Call of Duty 4. It's called strafe running, and there's different varieties of this used across different Call of Duties, and we're not going to talk about the specifics of every single one of them. It seems to be easily done on mouse and keyboard, but essentially by kind of wiggling and sprinting and running at the same time, you get a little bit of an extra forward momentum when you're jumping and like doing this little like side by side look angle. It's actually really impressive. And when you watch speedrunners, like I was watching Kluger28 run the level Ultimatum, man, you just zoom through the level way faster than intended. And I think that's awesome, especially for the speedrunning community. I also remember from our coverage of Modern Warfare 2, way back in the day, we talked about Modern Warfare 2 speedruns, and this was a trick that also was used just to move through the game quicker. So yeah, it's a cool thing. I found another low quality banger video of a machine gun that's missing that you can shoot. Like it's not there 1 second, and then when you get on it, it's there, and then it's not there, and then you can shoot it at a weird angle, and the whole like first person perspective is all messed up. Kind of interesting. I also found this video of someone playing that sniper level where you're like sneaking through the grass and stuff, and he has this weird glitch happen where like the dogs don't attack him even though they like see him. It's really bizarre. But what's also really bizarre is at the beginning of the recording, you know, things are smooth, so I know like his recording software I think is recording in real time, the audio is working and stuff, but his gameplay, it's literally like 5 frames a second. I just love these 15-year-old videos that are just like the most bizarre mix of quality, because I want to believe his recording software is recording in real time and this is just how he's actually playing the game. And I also can totally see someone like some teenager who doesn't have a good computer, but they have Call of Duty 4 on that computer dealing with, you know, less than 10 frames a second to try to just play the Call of Duty game and learning how to play like this. I don't know. This one's incredible. But yeah, the dogs are the glitch that we're talking about here. While doing research for this part of the video, I also found this other Call of Duty 4 glitch of some AI not responding correctly, just awkwardly standing there. But I like this video because you can hear like the friends laughing at the AI in the background because they're filming their TV screen. And upon closer inspection, in the description of the video, we're informed that this video was filmed by Romance is Dead PWD, and allegedly it was filmed off of his BlackBerry Storm in his friend's basement. Man, a BlackBerry Storm. What a blast from the past. Yeah, and once again, another glitch that's interesting, but I'm way more intrigued by the backstory of the video. Okay, we talked a little bit about some of the multiplayer maps out of bounds that were really cool. There's a couple more that are worth mentioning here, like on the level Backlot, there's this out of bounds area you can do once again in that old school mode, and it was just so much fun. There was so many areas you could go and explore, and it was definitely one of the easier ones to pull off. Like you didn't have to do any crazy jumps. This just became one of those big out of bounds exploration maps that were easy to pull off. But on the level Wetwork, this level was hated to be played on Michael Myers, not because of the locations you could hide in, but for Michael Myers himself, it was always a pain to play on because there is like this secret upper level that a lot of players can go to. It's like this higher level of the boat that you can't actually get to in the multiplayer level, but if you do a little bit of parkour and some jumps right, you can get up there. But there's also some other locations on this map too. Like you can get to this little staircase and you can just float here. It's not the best hiding spot, but I mean, you could float up here by doing like a sprint jump crouch into it. And then also you could get all the way on top of the masts and just be hiding up here, which, you know, if you're playing Michael Myers, maybe you don't know all the glitches. This is a pain to try to find people who are hiding way up here. But then this map really got invalidated for fairness because there's also ways you can just jump off of the boat and fall way beneath the map, and then there's no way back up. So it kind of ruined it. Like if Michael Myers went after one player who had jumped off the boat, he might be able to get him down there, but then anyone who's still up on the boat is alive, and how's Michael Myers supposed to get back up to kill them? It ruined the custom game, so I don't think this map ended up being as popular. But man, yeah, that kind of just wraps up some of the big ones from Call of Duty 4. There's a lot of other little cool like trick spots and things that this game had, and other glitches I'm sure we're missing, but there's so so many crazy glitches coming up that just get way more fascinating and way more involved that we have to look at. Okay, now it's time we move on to Call of Duty World at War, which released in 2008, which is crazy to think about how long ago that was. This game was a really big deal. It was the final Call of Duty game to be World War II themed for quite a long time. It introduced zombies mode to the franchise for the very first time, and it also started the trend of Call of Duty releasing regular DLC maps on a normal basis rather than like the one expansion each COD would get beforehand. We'll jump around between zombies, campaign, and multiplayer here, just to, keep you guys on your toes. Over the years in zombies, there's been multiple different ways that you're able to get 3 weapons, and this was back before mule kick was a thing, so having 3 weapons was a really big deal. Now, the method of getting 3 guns has changed across different zombie games, but the 2 main ways people would do it would be like to run over and grab a perk, and while drinking the perk, quickly buy a weapon out of the mystery box when it pops up, and as long as the animation is still playing, you'll have a 3rd weapon in your slot. Or alternatively, there was another system that a lot of us would do where we would put a bouncing Betty down when we were also buying a perk, which would then have us with no weapon, and then from there, you could go and buy a gun off the wall or hit the box, and then whatever gun we now had would be our 3rd weapon. There were a couple of other ways you could pull this glitch off still, but nonetheless, the big picture here is that 3 gun glitches were a really big part of the original World at War zombie days. On the first zombie maps ever, Nacht der Untoten, way back in the base version of the game, before any patches were released, there were a lot of different glitches that could occur that could help you survive for a very long time. There was an invisible barrier you could jump into up by the cabinet that has a sniper inside of it upstairs, and if you jumped in just right and you laid down and angled yourself correctly, the zombies would get stuck in this invisible barrier. Now, some of the time they could pass by, or they could come up behind you from the window, but if you're playing co-op, this could be a solid strategy for trying to survive. There was another location where you could survive over in the other room with the grenades, and if you did the similar jump where you crouched and then kind of stayed put, the zombies would kind of stand over here instead and would not come after you, which was really cool. This one worked for a while, but once you get to the really high levels, there's so many zombies, some of them will break through the barrier and probably end you. There was this other spot that you still could get hit in, but people like to do it, where if you're on the stairs over here and you jumped onto this little ledge, and then you jumped again, you could kind of get to this out of bounds area. This one would quickly be patched though, and nowadays if you're playing World at War and you do this glitch, you'll probably get killed by nothing just for trying the glitch. It's just a hard death barrier now. These glitches would carry on in various Call of Duty zombie maps over the years. Verrückt, the next zombie map released in World at War, you could hide in the door at the spawn and do this thing and the zombies would get stuck in the corner. There were a few places you could jump and lay down and then stand up again that would cause this glitch to happen in different locations. You could do it again in the bar room, that little room that didn't have too much going on. It could be a good survival room if you managed to pull the glitch off right. And there was one that also worked in co-op mode that wasn't patched until a little bit later on, so it was more popular than some of these early ones that got patched immediately, where you could kind of jump into this corner, walk down a bit, and then walk back, and it would like reset where the game thought you were, and a lot of zombies would come there. But once again, you could get flanked, but if you're playing co-op, it was a good strategy. Call of Duty World at War was also known for having a handful of elevator glitches, which were interesting. A lot of these did get patched out over time, but in the early days of this game, you could do these for quite some time before they were finally taken out of the game because it was annoying to be killed by someone completely out of the map. On Asylum, if you did a series of jumps and crouches over by this back door, you would eventually just be elevated up to the top of the map. And then from there, you could walk around a little bit and then land on top of the building and completely have an angle that's unfair to everybody else. This also worked on the map Outskirts. Over by this little wall, you could jump on top of this, and then you do the trick, and then you get elevated up to the top, and then bam, you are out of bounds, just above everything else, and it was another unfair spot. The multiplayer map Cliffside also had a little elevator over in these bushes and rocks where you could stand here and do the same actions of this like crouch, jump, walk forward type thing that would eventually elevate you up above the map, giving you access to this little area that people can't see you in very well. It's pretty unfair. But Cliffside had a couple of other glitches as well. There was this area where if you blew up the barrels and you jumped at just the right angle, you could get up on top of this ledge. Not fully a glitch, but still the button to climb up wasn't like just naturally implemented. so I don't know if it was intended to let people get up here, but you definitely could get up here. There was this area by the statues, and a lot of players would jump on top of the statues to get a higher up angle, which I don't think players are intended to get up onto. And then if you run through these bushes, you could climb up on these rocks and actually get all the way on top of the map through these bushes, which was pretty interesting. Also, back on the last Zombies map that released in World at War, WWII, if you were playing on the PC version of the game and you went over to this corner and you kept kind of jumping and clambering forward and crouching or whatever, you would find an elevator here as well that would take you on top of the map. This one apparently doesn't work on the console version, so maybe that's why it wasn't discovered until way later on. But yeah, this one is kind of interesting. Okay, over on the campaign level, the famous one, of course, Vendetta. When you're inside the buildings, you can actually jump along some of these railings, and if you do a couple of precise jumps, they're honestly not that hard because I'm able to pull these off all these years later, you can end up essentially falling out of the map, and this is a huge area you can go and explore. All the sections from the end part of the level that you normally don't get to see or you only see from a distance, you now get to see up close, which is kind of cool, and you get to see how things like spawns work in this level as well. So this was definitely one of my favorite glitches from Call of Duty World at War. Over on the multiplayer map Dome, you can actually jump on top of this platform by jumping from this railing and clambering up just the right way. It's a little tricky to pull off, but people definitely were able to do it back in the day, and they would patch some of the ways to do it, but then other ways were still available in the game for a while, so it was cool that this one lived on, even if it was unfair. It did get patched to the point, though, it wasn't very viable to do in a quick game on Dome in multiplayer matchmaking, so it wasn't as big of a deal, but it was still a spot you could do in like a private match if you're just trying to show off to friends. Similarly, there's this glitch on Upheaval where you kind of have to clamber onto nothing by standing at a very specific angle and lining yourself up. I don't know why this works, but you can clamber onto nothing and then use that to run on top of some sections of the map, which can then elevate you onto the rooftops. And then from the rooftops, you can go all over the place. There's sections over here you can climb onto, you can jump onto these roofs, you can even make your way all the way across to this side of the map, and there's just a lot you're able to do. And then also on WWII, there was this little glitch in the underground tunnel. You could essentially have one person stand on top of the other person, and it would form a barrier for the zombies to not push up. And from there, you would just hold out and the zombies wouldn't get to you. The dogs could get past, so you still were in danger, and the zombies that come out of the window were a threat, but this was used quite a bit until it did eventually get patched. Over on the multiplayer map Castle, you could actually get on top of the rooftops, and I don't know if this one actually counts as a glitch per se. It kind of was like more of a secret area you could get into, so should we count this one? I don't know. A lot of people did jump up onto the rooftops to get an advantage on other players, so I don't know. I don't know if this one counts. Let us know in the comments if you think this does count, but it still was a cool little area. Also, on this map, if you had the deployable mount on your machine gun before they patched this glitch out of the game that allowed you to deploy your machine gun on the actual ground, you could lay down, deploy your machine gun in this section, and then crawl backwards, which would essentially let you clip way underneath the map, and then from there you would just be able to shoot up at players. This ended up getting patched where they removed the ability to deploy the mount on the ground because this was being used not just on Castle, but multiple different maps. And there probably are a ton of other undiscovered glitches where this would have worked that ended up being just invalidated by them removing the feature altogether. This glitch was patched very early on, so there's not a lot of footage out there of it. Actually, the only footage I could find of this glitch, other than from my memory watching people do it back in the day, is a black and white footage. Someone had their capture card settings all messed up in 2008. Also, there's this glitch where if you run around while holding a pistol and staring up and sprinting, your character looks absolutely hilarious. I don't know why. I always thought this was funny and I was really disappointed when this was removed from later iterations of Call of Duty. It also looks great when you do it with like a giant rocket launcher of some sort. I don't know, just cool. Okay, over on the campaign level, Little Resistance, the second one in the game, remember how you could go and do this really cool Easter egg to get the ray gun? I always thought this was incredible. And for some reason, if you search up Little Resistance World at War glitch, everybody is just talking about the ray gun as if this was a glitch and they didn't know it was an Easter egg, or they didn't know the difference between an Easter egg and a glitch. No, this isn't a glitch, this is an Easter egg. But on Little Resistance, if you have the ray gun, if you make your way to the end of the level where all those tanks are and you're at that structure, you can use the ray gun to kind of bounce jump yourself onto this little side platform, and then from there you can climb up the rocks and you can get outside of the map over on the right side, and that is a real glitch, so that's more impressive. Over on the multiplayer map Macon, if you went over to that roundhouse bridge area, you could actually stand on these little side ledges and climb up which could get you up into this little storage area, which was a great spot to hide, camp, or snipe. Back in the day, Airfield was another map that was notorious for having a ton of different glitched locations you can access. For instance, if you jump on top of these platforms, you can make your way up to the top. It is really tricky to pull off these jumps, and they are very specific, but hey, if you knew what you're doing and had enough practice, you could definitely get out of the map. There's also this spot over on the back of Airfield, which was a little bit easier to pull off because you could get up and jump a lot easier, but it did lock you into this little area where you're stuck back here, but it did make for a great Michael Myers hiding spot, and as long as you don't have to run away, you're pretty much set here. Over on the multiplayer map Hangar, there was this other little glitch that you could do where if you managed to jump over here and get near this light, you could use this to elevate yourself to a higher part, and then you could get on top of the main building, which once again, another out of bounds area. On the campaign level Black Cats, sometimes there's this weird glitch that'll occur where after you rescue some of the sailors that are in the water, the game just blocks you from being able to switch turrets, which then just gets your entire level soft locked because you're not able to like do anything that you're told to do. So you have to restart the level. Not a fun glitch, but a glitch. Over in Search and Destroy, there was this funny glitch where when you're planting the bomb, if you put a Bouncing Betty down at the same time as you pick up the bomb to plant or to defuse, if you do it in that window where the animation is going down, kind of like how you would do the 3-gun glitch, you would just infinitely continue to plant the bomb even after the timer of the plant time was completed, and then you could just run around with the bomb in your hand while you're planting, and you could stab and it would come back up. You could even throw a grenade, but when you threw the grenade, you would no longer have any weapon out. So that's like 2 glitches in one. Absolutely pointless other than it looking funny, but hey, it did look funny. Also, back in the day when you were playing zombies, if one of your teammates got downed or you got downed, there was a chance your whole game would just crash randomly and you would get this error message saying stance not allowed or something along the lines of that.
There's not a lot of examples of all the error messages documented online, but there were a lot of random error messages that could pop up in your zombies game, just kind of ending things abruptly.
I remember this one happening back in the day, but I couldn't find any footage of anyone recreating it or having it happen to them online. Though there are discussions of people having the glitch happen to them, there is footage of someone having the same glitch happen to them in Black Ops 3. So whatever this glitch is, or whatever causes the glitch, may continue to exist in multiple different Call of Duty games. On the final level of the American side of the campaign, when you're playing up to the end battle, where either you have to choose to save Roebuck or Polanski, if you manage to carry a mortar strike with you all the way from the middle section of the map, and at the right time you throw the mortar strike right in between the two of them, there is a chance you can actually save both of them, which is kind of cool. However, it seems like the game then favors you saving Roebuck, and Polanski's character just stands there AFK, not moving, while the rest of the battle continues. And yeah, he's just there. But technically, I guess he's alive. Then over on the multiplayer map CeeLo, there was this little fun one that, I don't know if this is a glitch, but it's cool. If you went up into the watchtower, you could back up onto this little like fencing, and then you could jump and clamber up onto the roof of the watchtower. Also, on this map, there was another glitch that I never even knew about, but the YouTuber Fortunate actually did a video not too long back showing it, where if you use a tank and you park it sideways in the little tunnel here, you could back it up, and then when you jump out, you could be inside of the wall of the tunnel. Do you guys remember the multiplayer map Downfall? That giant map, probably one of the biggest, like 6-on-6, or I think it let you do 9-on-9 in war. Nonetheless, it was still a massive map. Like, you could run all the way back here and get inside these giant areas, or go up the steps on the other side of the map. There were these buildings and these little, like, dugouts. I don't know, I always thought this map was huge. But if you go over to this one, like, wall area, it's like a partition, you can lay down and just crawl right through the dirt and the wall itself and get under the map in this little section. There's really not too much you can do here, but it still is a neat little area that you're able to access. And then finally, in World at War Deriz, if you die in the game and you load up for another round, if you just like spam the Y button or the triangle button if you're on PlayStation, that's typically the button associated with spectate third person mode. And if you do that, when you load up into the game the next time, you'll be in third person, which is incredible. This was before Modern Warfare 2 even introduced third person as a playable game type. So this is like one of the first Call of Duty games in a mainline sense you got to run around in third person mode. It is incredibly hard to control your character and aim and kill zombies, but nonetheless, this was something you were able to do back in World at War. Modern Warfare 2 was like the biggest Call of Duty at the time of its release. There hadn't been a Call of Duty as popular as what Modern Warfare 2 was at that point, and man, it really defined an era for Call of Duty. Does anyone remember jumping out of the map on Skid Row? Back in the day, there was all of these different little ways that you could do precise jumps that were really challenging to do, but if you could pull them off, you could get out of bounds on Skid Row in multiple different ways. You could climb all the way up this section on the side by this open rooftop and make your way on top of the building, and I don't think too many people actually try to use this specific glitch in multiplayer, but the glitch was like something a lot of people would do in custom games just for fun to explore the area. That's what we did back in the day. It's kind of like the map High Rise, where there were these harder to reach locations that weren't really glitches, but I wanted to mention them here as well just because they were special. They were parts of the map, and some people did utilize them in game as you were allowed to, but the risk of actually dying while you're trying to do one of the tricks to get into one of the spots was pretty high. So it was like this risk reward type thing, a calculated risk to say the least. So yeah, you could jump down on this little like window cleaning thing, or you could climb up this railing, which doesn't look like something you could climb, and then from there you could run all the way across this like little side area, climb up this, and make it up to the roof of the building. And there were also cool spots over on the crane section on the other side of the map. Over on the campaign level, Whiskey Hotel, you know, that awesome level that had the White House in it, when you're inside the White House, you can actually go into this little corridor outside and then run alongside this little side railing type thing, and you can clip through that, and then it gives you access to this little other front area, and if you jump onto that and get through this, you can get access essentially to the front garden yard area of the White House, which just gets you an up-close view, an area that isn't intended for players to access, but it looks kind of cool. It's kind of one of the neater little areas you can go and explore. Also, do some of you guys remember the old one-man army glitch? One-man army was a perk that would take up your secondary weapon slot and would allow you to change out your class like mid-round or mid-turn without having to necessarily die and respawn. Essentially, if you timed it perfectly though, where you were pulling out an equipment at the same time as when you were changing out your class, you could pull off this glitch where the game thought you had your new class out, but you are still holding the equipment item that you were already holding from before. So instead, your equipment starts shooting the bullets like a gun would, and it looks absolutely hilarious. It was really chaotic, pretty harmless, but still pretty funny to look at. This next one's possibly one of my favorite Modern Warfare 2 glitches of all time, but in the Spec Ops mission Hidden, it's essentially that sniper section from Call of Duty 4's campaign where you have to like sneak around and stuff. In the beginning of the area, if you jumped up on top of this specific car or stacked cars and then jumped across to this, you could drop onto these cars, which then give you access to just the out of bounds area of the map. Now, what's really, really fascinating is that this level, of course, was recreated for Spec Ops from Call of Duty 4, but what I didn't realize was that this level was actually a direct port of the Call of Duty 4 map, because as you run further out of bounds, you'll notice there's a lot of details in the distance that aren't just like, you know, far away, low poly models like typically you would see in an out of bounds map. Matter of fact, this is like the entire Pripyat Chernobyl type level in reverse, as this is where it would fit into the campaign back in COD 4, and it's just the same structures and stuff from that level, and you can run around and explore quite a bit actually. And this is just a really cool detail that made it all the way into the final release of the game. Like, there's still like objects in the locations. What's even more interesting about this specific glitch is that when you are out of bounds, you can actually see where the map has its little load line, where you can see the map load and deload different sections based on where your player is standing. Kind of cool. And then there's this really weird, almost unsettling aspect of this glitch. But in these rooms, all the way back from the COD 4 part of the level, there's these televisions, and you can actually turn the televisions on by using the interaction button, like X on Xbox, and it shows this like rainbow screen. Now at first I thought, oh, this is just leftover from Call of Duty 4, and in Modern Warfare 2 they let you turn the TVs on and off, and it's just a rollover from that. But if you look back at the Call of Duty 4 mission itself, the TVs aren't in these rooms. So they're oddly exclusive to Modern Warfare 2's version, even though you're never intended to go out here. There was also another one-man army glitch you could have if you fell into last stand while changing your weapon with the one-man army thing, where sometimes you could actually pull out a primary weapon while in last stand and shoot it as if you were in final stand, the death streak, but instead you're just in normal last stand. And yeah, just another oddity from the one-man army era of gaming. Similarly, if you spawned in with one-man army and you hit A and RB at the same time quickly, there was a way you could pull off the glitch where all of a sudden you just have no weapon out. And I'm starting to realize that with all of the glitches that came from one-man army, it probably makes sense why this specific perk hasn't really made a big return in later Call of Duty games. We don't really see it nowadays. Also, you might remember one of the harder Spec Ops missions being armor piercing. It was that level on the oil rig site that had all of the juggernauts. There's actually a way you can glitch out of this map as well by standing right on the edge here and aiming to land down below on this little tiny platform. From there, though, you do have access to a little area you can explore, but if you're not careful, you will fall to your death. It's a pretty basic spot. I don't think it'll actually help you beat the level, but hey, it's somewhere you can run around. In Modern Warfare 2's No Russian, remember that super controversial level that was insane, but definitely raised the stakes of the campaign? You can glitch out of this map as well, which is pretty cool. You can jump on top of this truck out by the airplane, and from there, leap across onto the engine of the plane, and then if you army crawl under an invisible barrier, you can make your way back up to the wing, then jump on the very top of the train, which then gives you access to jump to the back wing. And then if you make it to the back wing, you could run on top of the plane while you're getting shot at by all the enemies, which of course does make this a little harder, but on lower difficulties, it shouldn't be too bad. From there though, you can run on top of the little like entry gate and get on top of the terminal building. Now, mind you, this is the second plane. There's 2 planes in the actual campaign mission, unlike the multiplayer level. And from there, you could run back to the first plane and get a cool view of what the map looks like from above, the extended terminal area beyond just the multiplayer map. You can take a look at the skybox in the distance, and it's just kind of a really interesting look or perspective at a really iconic location from Call of Duty campaign history. This next one might not seem as massive as some of the other ones we looked at, but if you remember on the map Sub Base, there is a couple of little hidden areas you can climb up onto, which players definitely don't expect you to be on. I don't know if the developers were intending people to get up onto them, like this one where you can get literally on top of like that giant thing coming out of the submarine. There's also a couple other cheeky hiding spots in this multiplayer map as well. Also, you might remember the multiplayer level Afghan. This one was kind of awesome. Now, a lot of you already know about the little hiding spot. If you ran up on top of the wing and you jumped across onto these little pipes, you could hide up here, and not a lot of people would expect you to be here. But when I played Michael Myers back in the day, my go-to hiding spot was way up on the cliffs in this back right corner. You can lay down on this like little decline by these rocks, and honestly, it seemed like people would never find you there. I don't think this spot was really that great in multiplayer unless you're trying to call in a kill streak in a safe area. But yeah, I would hide here when I played Michael Myers. Going back to Terminal, the multiplayer version of the campaign level from No Russian, there was a couple of glitches people also did back in the day here, especially getting on top of the plane. That was a crazy one, but it was a little challenging to do with everyone actually playing on the map in real time. But you'd have to make this kind of long jump from the emergency slide to these boxes, and then from there you could kind of climb up and get onto the wing, or there was other jumps you could do to get up on top of the actual plane itself. This map was brought back in Modern Warfare 3, like the newer Modern Warfare 3 from 2023. And doing the glitch like you get on these boxes nowadays isn't even a glitch. It's so easy to do. But back in the day, it was kind of a skill jump that you had to do. On the multiplayer map Derail, over in this back alleyway, there's kind of like this dumpster looking thing, and you can actually pull off one of those old-fashioned elevator tricks here as well that get you elevated to the top of the map and give you kind of an unfair advantage. It was a little hard to pull off in game though, and obviously since there are so many snipers on this level, I feel like people would just snipe the person out of the map. So it wasn't really the best spot, but it was a cool spot, I guess. And then over on Estate, there weren't that many glitches, but there was this little trick you could do to climb up and do a few precision jumps and get up on top of the roof of the boathouse. Once again, in newer Call of Duty games like Modern Warfare 3, this is like a spot that they expect you to go to, but back in the day, it was like a precise trick jump that you had to get up to if you wanted to be up on that platform. There's also another building that you could do some trick jumps to get up on top of as well, which was maybe a little bit more controversial. And then there was also tricks you could do to get up on top of like the little, I don't know, what is this, like an electrical place? A power plant? What are these things called? If you play the Spec Ops version of Estate Takedown, there is a trick that you can do to actually get on top of the building directly, which is pretty cool. You couldn't do it in multiplayer, but at least Estate Takedown would let you do it. I also thought it was interesting that how in Spec Ops and Campaign there were weapons that weren't in multiplayer. So I always had fun playing on Estate Takedown because I remember I was able to use the Dragunov, which wasn't in the multiplayer side of things. And that just like unlocked a core memory that I forgot all about when I was talking about Estate Takedown, the Spec Ops level. There were a lot of trick spots on Favela in general with Modern Warfare 2, but there was an elevator that you could do that would give you access to the entirety of the map from above, or you could drop out and go explore the entire outer regions of the map. And I thought that was awesome. There was also some glitches similarly that you could do in the campaign area that also is based in this structure. So it was like a double area that you could glitch out multiple different ways. But yeah, I thought this one was always fun to try to explore back when I was a teenager playing this. I forgot to mention this other one, but also on Estate, there's that greenhouse, and you could climb on top of that as well. I don't know if this one actually counts as a glitch, but it was a cool little area that you could climb on top of, and I wanted to mention it. Over on the multiplayer map Invasion, there was some crazy parkour you could do on these palm trees, and it would give you a really great unfair hiding spot where you're just like sitting on top of one of the palm trees hidden away. And Karachi was another awesome map that you could go explore by doing some very precise parkouring and a lot of trial and error. A lot of people back in the day when exploring maps like Karachi would bring along, once again, one-man army because they can continue to reset their tactical insertions, which meant that if they killed themselves, they would respawn wherever their insertion was. So they would use that and try to continue to trial and error different glitches and different tricks and locations to get out of maps. Actually pretty smart. I found this old video of someone glitching out of bounds on the multiplayer map Rust, and the guy in the video talks about having to do his homework after he's done.
Kind of have to do my homework after this, so it's a pain in the butt, I know. Who there hates school?
On the campaign level of the pit where you run through the little like obstacle course shooting all the targets, there's actually a way you can jump out of bounds on this level as well, which is awesome because then you can go explore this whole like military base but from the outside. Also on the multiplayer map Wasteland, there are these borders at the edge of the map that you're not supposed to go out to. There's radiation that'll kill you. But if you have Painkiller, the Death Streak, it gives you increased health, and especially if you're in like custom games and you give yourself double health or whatever, you have a higher chance of survival, you could make a sprint for it, and eventually you can get out of the radiation zone but on the other side. And that gives you full access to explore the sandbox, skybox, whatever you want to call it, outside of the main area that the Wasteland multiplayer level takes place in. There's a weapon trick you can do in Modern Warfare 2 where essentially your gun will be like dual wielded off center, and it's like a weird hybrid of dual wielding and not dual wielding at the same time. There isn't clear directions in this video I found of someone doing the glitch, just the end result of the glitch, but it looks like you have 3 arms as you're doing it. Just 2 for one gun and an extra hand for another gun. Neat. I think riot shields back in the Modern Warfare 2 days were some of the goofiest introductions into Call of Duty. And nowadays we're used to seeing riot shields in FPS games, but this was like the first time a riot shield was added into Call of Duty, and it was a really big deal. And people using it in multiplayer often would have some weird glitches occur when they use the riot shield, especially if you were just like on the team and you see your teammate using the riot shield. There were so many times where the character model would just like glitch out because of the riot shield placement making things awkward, and it led to some really funny moments that some people managed to record back in the day. Okay, back on the multiplayer map Favela, I can't believe I almost forgot about this one, but if you go inside the barber shop and you punch this mirror, for whatever reason, I don't know why, the mirror will just kill you. I don't get it. I don't know why this happens. It never got patched. It's still there. And yeah, it just kills you. I don't know. On the Spec Ops mission Homeland Security, there's a glitch you can do to get outside of this map as well. Surprisingly enough, holding a machine gun turret for placement actually serves as this weird device that you can use to leverage yourself onto platforms you normally would get kicked off on, because the game wants to place the turret so it'll hold everything up around it, including the player holding the turret if the turret is almost in a valid location. So you could use this to jump on top of things and get outside of the maps on things like Homeland Security, for example. At first, it's just with you getting like outside of this little area and on top of some roofs, which is fine and all, but then when you jump outside of the actual borders of the map, you have quite a bit of areas to go and explore in this neighborhood. You go run down this highway that's kind of low resolution, and I don't know, just kind of see things from an all new angle. It's kind of fun. There's another rare elevator glitch on the snow level, if you guys remember from the campaign. I can't remember what this campaign level is called, but you had the EVR at the beginning of the level. I think the campaign level was called Contingency. I think it's that one. But yeah, there's an elevator here. Elevators are becoming less and less common at this point. Activision had been working hard at trying to make sure these were patched out with how abundant they were in COD 4 and World at War. So it is interesting whenever we still find them. But yeah, there's one here. You can get on top of the map and run around. Also, on the Spec Ops mission Sniper Fi, the one sniper holdout firefight level, there is a way that you can angle yourself in a specific jump that gives you a super bounce. Kind of like Halo 2 super bouncing, but maybe not as extreme. But it's always cool to see this little like jump and hop where you get flung up. We looked at another example of this earlier in COD 4, but it existed here in this specific example in Modern Warfare 2 as well. I don't know what the point of it is too much. You die most of the time when you land, but you do get to go flying up in the air for a minute, and that's fun. Switching over to the campaign level war driving, the one where you're in like that little neighborhood in the US, you can use that machine gun turret glitch that we talked about earlier, again, to leverage yourself into spots you're not supposed to get into, and from there you're able to essentially scale the outside of one of the houses and get on top of the roofs, which then gives you access to this whole area that's now a parkour level for you to explore, but also you can get out of bounds and go and explore whatever neighborhood section you want to see. There's never really too much going on out of bounds, but it is fun to be able to have that access, especially in the campaign mode. You know, in multiplayer, you're able to go into spectate mode, and you can set your camera to free and just like fly around and look at all the little details, but we didn't have stuff like this for campaign, so doing it with your character model alive was a pretty big deal, and a cool find nonetheless. I found this other strange Modern Warfare 2 glitch. I don't even know what's happening or how this glitch was possible, but I found the old reaction to this clip where all of these missiles are just spotted in the sky, and everyone starts reacting to seeing all of them in the sky, and they don't know why they're all up there, and then they come down.
Oh my god! Holy crap.
Do you guys remember the final level of the campaign, like that bonus level at the end where you're in the Modern Warfare 2 museum and then you can press the button and all the enemies come and attack you? Well, there is a little invincibility spot on the museum if you lay down in this corner specifically, where for whatever reason, the enemies can't seem to hit you. That's awesome. Modern Warfare 2 was pretty incredible, but after Modern Warfare 2's day ended, it set things up for the next Call of Duty game with Call of Duty Black Ops 1. Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about Call of Duty Black Ops, which was a really big deal for 2010. It was the sequel to World at War. It was a Cold War themed Call of Duty game, breaking away from the World War II thing that Treyarch had been doing, and it also was the second Call of Duty game to have zombies, and zombies is now getting bigger and more interest than ever before. One of the most iconic glitches from Call of Duty Black Ops was definitely on the multiplayer Zombies map 5, where you could get on top of the main table, which would then be a safe place from all of the zombies. Now, there were a couple different strategies people used to use to do this, but one of the most common ones was for players to run over and grab speed cola, and then like break specific holes in the glass here, so that when you rebuild barriers, there's this little platform that you can actually jump on top of and stand on. So the setup is a little confusing, but once you do jump onto that little platform, you can make a sprint long jump and make it onto the table, where from there the zombies can't get you. This was a huge trick a lot of people did back in the day, and people would just try to see how long they could survive. Obviously, when you're limited to just a little safe area, when you run out of ammo or you have to, like, I don't know, move for whatever reason, there is the risk of dying and or not being able to set up the glitch again. But a lot of people did find that if you just sat up there for a long time and the enemies couldn't get to you, a lot of the time they'll just die and the new rounds will move. So there was a cheese that people would use for a while, but yeah, this one's definitely one of the more popular and well-known glitches from the Black Ops era. Over on Nuketown, just the multiplayer map, there was a trick where if you were 1v1ing someone in a sniper battle and they were standing in the middle of the map, they could essentially predict and manipulate your respawn so that you would line up perfectly with a headshot collateral. I had this happen to me once where I just would spawn in and immediately get headshotted and had no idea how the guy was doing it. He eventually told me that he had just memorized all of the respawn lineups for a one-on-one match, and there wasn't like an aimbot or like see-through walls or anything like that. He just spent all that time learning that. That was a lot of time. Okay, back in the day, I thought nobody believed me that this was something that could happen, but if your Call of Duty Black Ops disc gets just slightly damaged in some way or another but still works, there's a chance that your entire game will load in without like textures. Everything is just chrome for whatever reason. I've seen other people upload their own perspectives where it was more like a goldish color, but nonetheless, it's like this weird chrome ops experience. It looks awful. It's hard to navigate. I had this happen to my disc, and I also had found out that a couple other YouTubers back in the day had it happen happened to their disc. I think one was even auctioned off in a charity event at one point. But yeah, I had this actually happen to my own copy of Black Ops, so I can validate that it was in fact a real thing. It wasn't like a weird mod like some people thought that it was. I think it had more downsides than benefits though. It was hard to navigate and see where you were, even if you could see zombies through a wall occasionally or some weird glitch associated with it. Over on the campaign mission SOG, if you look at one of the corpses down in this like trench area, you'll notice that the Marine's mouth is moving even though he's supposed to be dead. This glitch is pretty common though, pretty easy to go and recreate. You might have to load up the level a couple of times, but nonetheless, yeah, this one kind of gives me nightmares sometimes. On the zombies map Shangri-La, there was actually a little trick you could do by standing behind a prone player on the left side of the machine and then moving the left analog stick to the right and moving your right analog stick all the way to the left. When the water comes down that's supposed to take the player out of the pack-a-punch area, the water will eventually stop, and while other players will have been sent down the stairs to the bottom, the player that was doing the glitch will be able to stand up and will be unaffected by the water, which allows the player to hide up here by the pack-a-punch machine for a little bit longer. There's a weird glitch that just happens occasionally whenever you're playing zombies, especially in Black Ops 1, where when you kill a zombie, the zombie will just be standing there afterwards it's dead. Especially the dogs or the hellhounds will do that as well, and you're just like, guys, are you seeing this? And then none of your friends see it because it's only a client-based glitch. So yeah, you just kind of look at it and you're like, that's weird, and go back to killing zombies. Do you guys remember the multiplayer map Villa? Well, if you go inside of the villa itself, you'll see that there's this orange in the center of the house that's just kind of floating there. On the zombies map Deriza, there was this very annoying glitch that was in the game forever, where essentially if you purchased the trench gun from Call of Duty World at War off of the wall and you shot the gun and reloaded the gun, all players in the game would hear the trench gun as if it was them shooting the gun themselves. It could get really annoying because it's just constant gunfire coming from the shotgun that you're not even holding, but you would hear it as if you were holding it. I don't think they ever ended up patching this one. I do remember this being in the game for a very, very long time. In the spawn room on Kino der Toten, there is a little platform you can leap and jump on, which will make it where you're kind of floating above the ground. You're really just standing on this little piece of wood, but the zombies can't easily get to you. Now, eventually, if there's a lot of zombies, they can break through the barrier and definitely reach up and grab you, but in the early rounds or when there's not as many enemies left and you need to like run and do something real quick, you're usually pretty safe if you only have like crawlers around to hide here and not have to worry about dying. Over on the famous multiplayer map Nuketown, if you wanted to go and explore beyond just the borders of this map and see the rest of the town, well, you could load up into spectate free mode and fly around that way, or if you want to go see it around in person, there is a way that you can set yourself up with care packages lined up, and if you jump on the care packages correctly and make sense of where you're landing at all times, you can correctly glitch your way through the map and get to the other side and get to explore a little bit while you're out there. Also, I think when Black Ops came around, there was an adjustment into the game's physics engines, maybe for ragdolling effects or something, but sometimes a character's body will get clipped into the geometry when they die, and it can cause for some hilarious yet terrifying moments where a body will start glitching out all over the place. There's a lot of examples we'll see of this coming up time and time again throughout all of the Call of Duty games, but I think it really started here in Black Ops, and I mean, look at this is pretty goofy. Over on the campaign level Rebirth, there's actually an interesting out-of-bounds area you can go and explore by just doing some simple glitches. You jump on a car, you jump on some boxes, you jump on a roof, then you jump on some swing sets, then you jump on some more boxes, and next thing you know, you're on top of the map, and you just have to kind of follow some lineups to be able to run around this area. Unfortunately, there's no like super spooky secrets outside of this area, even though it is Rebirth Island, but it's still something you can do and explore. Similarly, towards the end of the Black Ops 1 campaign, there's an odd glitch that can occur where all of the enemies will just stand there practically T-posing, not doing anything. I found this video from 9 years ago of this occurring to a player, and I think his commentary is pretty great, just how surprised he is by this.
These guys are just, they look like they're playing Gary's mod.
Also, I gotta give a shout out to the YouTuber Jacob Poole, because he has a ton of campaign out of bounds videos where he explains various campaign glitches that were less likely to get patched, unlike multiplayer type glitches that Activision was a lot quicker on. So if you ever need like just a ton of extra campaign tutorials on how to get out of the map, Jacob Poole is your guy. Like for instance, if you follow his guide, you can find a way to glitch out of the campaign level numbers. Snaking was a trick that was done in a lot of different Call of Duty games, but Black Ops 1 I think made it more popular, where you essentially are drop shotting, but you're also like moving in a direction where the game makes you kind of slide from one end to another, making it really hard for you to shoot. It kind of looks like this. I was watching another video of someone playing through the Black Ops campaign, and they had this weird NPC attack them. I don't even know what I'm looking at here or what's going on in this clip. On the zombies level ascension, if you head over to where like the PHP flopper is, or that little like teleporter lander platform is, there is this little section you can jump onto, which gives you essentially a good old classic floating barrier on the zombies map where enemies have a harder time getting to you because they all get stuck below you. Now obviously, once again, once you jump out to go try to grab ammo or something, you put yourself at risk, but this was a legitimate strategy that people tried to use back in the day. If you've ever played Moon Zombies, you know that the level starts off in Area 51 and the zombies will come running after you and it's really scary. Well, occasionally there's a glitch that can occur where you come back to Area 51 to maybe hit your pack-a-punch or something or grab a perk, and for whatever reason, no zombies will come after you. I don't know why it happens, but apparently it happens from time to time. Also, on that multiplayer map Berlin Wall, there's a couple of tricks you can do to run across the no man's zone and not die in the process. Usually you have to be like sprinting straight for your target or doing something specific to not die, but yeah, there are ways to manipulate that in your favor where you somehow survive. On the multiplayer zombies map Call of the Dead, there's a trick spot over here that you can do that can sometimes cause enemies to get stuck in the doors, which is pretty funny. Okay, for this video, I was watching a trick video of someone doing tricks on the multiplayer map Kowloon, and I gotta say though, the video that I found just starts off with a banger. It starts off with that Monsters song, but it reminds me of that guy from that TikTok who did the song that doesn't sound like the song. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah, there's some glitches on Kowloon though that are kind of cool. But the songs used here, that's funny. Also, before we fully stop talking about like Berlin Wall, I found this kill cam glitch of whatever this is. I have no idea what I'm looking at. There's also this really weird glitch where sometimes the enemy will like not have a weapon and start sprinting at you trying to murder you, and for whatever reason he's invincible, so you can't kill him either. It's kind of terrifying, but also somewhat hilarious, I guess. I also found this clip from that flashback level where you have Reznov with you during like the World War II era, where he glitches out trying to follow you inside of a building, and he just kind of runs there infinitely trying to get through the doorway. Kind of funny looking. Okay, also on the campaign level Project Nova, there's this really weird glitch I'd never heard of before I did research for this video, but according to YouTuber Benny Blink 182 from December 3, 2010, he recorded his perspective of this weird glitch happening where it seems like Reznov is almost pointing a gun at the playable character Penchenko, the main character from World at War who appears in the flashback level in Black Ops. But also when like your character looks around, he notices some other things are off, like what's going on in that other truck across? Why does this guy's legs look like that? What is going on here? Wait, are the other soldiers in the back of this truck just like doing that T-pose thing from earlier? They're literally just phasing through the bench at this point. Now if we head over to the multiplayer map Hazard, which was a remake of World at War's Cliffside, there's a glitch you can do to get under the map, or at least in this wall, where if you lay down with a tactical insertion and kind of force your head into the cement under the grass here, you can actually place your tactical insertion down there, and then later you can essentially get inside of the location there. But it does give you access to explore the rest of this map, and while I don't think this one was ever too popular, I still think that little glitches like this were kind of cool. Okay, then the multiplayer map Stadium's really interesting because there is a trick you can do to actually get inside of the stadium itself using care packages, and this glitch combination could potentially work in other Call of Duty games as well, and maybe other Black Ops locations. But essentially, if you drop multiple care packages into a corner here and you pin a player essentially like at the bounds of the map, you can try to knife them to get the little like air thrust that Call of Duty gives players to get closer, and from there you're able to potentially clip outside of the map and gain access to the freezer sections that you're not supposed to normally have access to. Freezers as in like ice skating freezing sections. I don't know if that made sense. Over on the campaign mission Vorkuta, this prison might actually not be as tough as nails as we had initially thought, as you can just break out of the jail without having to do too much, just some parkour here on the side. You can use some metal railings to make your jump over to this fence where you can then walk along it and essentially clamber outside of the map, gaining you access to the outer barriers of Vorkuta without having to, you know, take over the entire prison just yet. I mean, we kind of already put that motion in order, so we can't stop it now, but there was an alternate way out this whole time, we just didn't know. Maybe Reznov would have actually survived if, you know, we'd went that route. Oh, there's also this glitch that I saw while looking up videos for this video where someone has that weird stretching effect happen because the player model, when they died, clipped through the fence, and the game tries to undo that by flinging the character as far as possible, and it just just leads to stuff like this happening. In the earlier days of Call of Duty Black Ops being like the Call of Duty game in its time, in multiplayer there was a weird glitch where you could utilize a friendly care package to essentially make you an invisible wall that you could then hide behind and shoot through, and other players would have trouble shooting and killing you even if they knew that you were behind the care package. I think this one ended up getting patched pretty quickly on, but it definitely was a glitch for a little while, and I don't think it was too fair. Also, while it seemed like Call of Duty Black Ops did fix that one glitch that would happen in World at War where if you looked up at the sky and sprinted, you'd look really funny running, but in Call of Duty Black Ops, if you went into theater mode and something similar happens, sometimes the player model will still be off-centered, and it looks like they're running on the heels of their feet and have really good balance somehow. This might be related to that other Black Ops glitch that we talked about earlier where it looked like the campaign player was moving, but this time around it's something specifically tied to a player character. So I feel like this makes this one a little more abstract and a little bit different. Now over on the multiplayer map Summit, there's a huge out of bounds area that you can go and explore, and really all it takes is to climb up on some rocks and do some stuff with the tactical insertion so you can always respawn if you mess up your placement. You kind of have to climb up this rock wall, which is a little bit challenging, and you can use care packages to help you get a little bit of an upper leg on this jump, which I recommend. But then after you get them all stacked up, just jump across and boom, you now have access to this big area outside of the multiplayer map Summit. Also, this video by TSN The Law I found from 2010 states that the glitch had been patched, so you'll have to do this on like an unpatched version of Black Ops 1, which isn't too hard to do if you have an Xbox 360 still. But also this random video with 121,000 views is to the soundtrack of Riot by 3 Days Grace. And I hadn't heard that song since maybe 2010, so I thought that it was fitting that it was in this video tutorial. Okay, now we have Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2 ahead of us still, but let's finish out Black Ops 1 with a few more classic zombie glitches. On Deriza, there's this little like fence lining that you can jump up and get yourself onto to stand, which can keep you safe for a while. You have to literally line yourself up like pixel perfect, and then when a zombie walks by, do a stab to lunge over, and then you can like land up here and you're safe for a second. This one's not too hard to actually pull off, even though it looks more challenging, but also sometimes from the videos I've seen of this, it can cause the zombies to float away. I don't know if that has something to do with like the player being in an invalid space that's breaking the barrier or something, but yeah, if you know why this happens, let me know. If you grab a bouncing Betty and then go lay in this corner where the double barrel shotgun is, and you do the same stick combination that you did over on Shangri-La while you're getting hit by a zombie, for whatever reason you can clip into the wall slightly, and from there army crawl your way out of bounds on the other side of the window barrier. From there you can actually get under the map and explore the whole level. You can also do this in the corner by Teleporter C, I believe it is. The one that's over by the trench gun. I think that's C. And if you lay in that corner and you get hit by a zombie while doing the same button combo, you'll glitch through the map again and you'll be under the map one more time. But yeah, that wraps it up for Black Ops 1. That was a crazy ride. But next we got to look at the next Call of Duty game to release, Modern Warfare 3. And when Modern Warfare 3 released, it was also a really big deal. It was one of the best-selling Call of Duty games for a very long time. And this is the one that Luke got into that really made him a Call of Duty fan. And for nostalgia's sake, Luke wanted to take a closer look at some of the glitches for this one. And since this video is 3 hours long, I was down for any extra help. So Luke organized this section, and yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at what is found in Modern Warfare 3. And then we'll talk about some of the other Call of Duties when I come back.
Now we finally get to Modern Warfare 3, which is my personal favorite game. I just really enjoyed this game when it came out. This was a pretty hype game for me. I mean, like, it was basically just an updated version of Modern Warfare 2 when it came to the multiplayer, so I thought that was pretty great. That kind of made it that some of the glitches are ones that are similar or some that occur in Modern Warfare 2 as well, so that's kind of interesting, I think. First glitch I found was by Merc Music from December 2011, just a month after the game released. He shows off this helicopter that got stuck inside the wall, or, you know, this incline right here, and it keeps spinning and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And I mean, you walk up to it, it doesn't damage you, it's just kind of this weird propeller. It just keeps on spinning. And from reading the comments, I learned that, first of all, he was on vacation and there was one guy that was really upset that he was uploading this during his vacation, so I don't know what that was about. But also, there's some people that said they got a similar glitch on other maps, so there might be more occurrences of this out there. Now this next glitch is on the Spec Ops mission Hit and Run, and if I remember correctly, the mission ends with you having to take out a helicopter, but there's actually a way to get on top of the helicopter if you break out the map and then you do a bunch of very precise pathing and parkouring to get on top of this building, which then lets you jump on top of the helicopter. What's cool is that you can actually kind of stand on the helicopter while it's flying around, and it'll take you places, and it looks kind of funky standing on top of this and not being hit by any of the rotors or anything. Remember back to campaign, there was that one mission where the airplane gets hijacked and there's like low gravity sections, and if you time it right and you drop your pistol at the right time before you kind of like get smacked to the floor, and then you pick up the floating pistol again right after, the pistol will be sideways, and you know, even the magazines coming out of the pistol will like float away sideways. It's kind of gangster actually. This next glitch actually I think works every time in campaign you encounter a Predator missile or in Spec Ops, and the way it basically works is if you jump off geometry and at the right time pull out the Predator missile, the Predator missile will actually not come from the sky, it'll come from where your player is at, and they'll just kind of like scoot on the floor, and then after you actually shoot the Predator missile and you get back into first person camera view, you are actually able to see through walls and just see into like different structures, like this container for example. Then also in the mission where there's like the diamond mine, and I think if I remember correctly you're trying to save the Russian president's daughter. I mean, if I don't remember it correctly, it's been a while since I played Modern Warfare 3's campaign. I should probably go back and play it again. Almost right at the beginning of the mission, you get up on this container and you wait for your friendly helicopter to come in, and then you jump on it and you crouch. It will actually push you out of the map and you're just able to be on top of this helicopter and, you know, kind of fly around and see the whole map from above. Now, I showed some of his footage earlier, but Glitcher's AD actually has an insane amount of out-of-map videos and tutorials, and he kind of has a cool backlog, specifically for Modern Warfare 3. Like for instance this one, on the Spec Ops mission Resistance movement, you come up to the staircase and you have your friend knife push you at the right time. You'll actually be able to land across the railing right here, and then after you get revived, you're out of bounds and you have free reign to explore the top of this building. You're able to get to the rooftops, and eventually, if you're careful enough, you're actually able to drop down into the rest of the mission and kind of have free roam of whatever you want to see, and it's kind of interesting to see this map. On the mission Bag and Drag, you jump out this window, you jump onto this lamp, and then you jump onto this windowsill over here by the bookstore, I think. And once you make it to this ledge and this window, you can kind of phase into the window, and then you can kind of see like what's going on behind the map. There's like this tank rolling around, and you know, it looks kind of like a void again. Now Glitcher's HT also showed off this trick on Dome to get out of the map, and this one seems a little bit more complicated, and I'm not quite sure if I fully understand it. But from my understanding is you go inside the dome, you have a player on the enemy team call in their recon drone, and then you do this lunge canceling with the throwing knives, which propels you up, which makes it so you can get into the dome. Then you place a tack insert, you do the same thing for the other player so you can also get up there, because for the next step you both need to be out of bounds. And after dropping down right here, you have to do the recon drone lunge one more time to get over this fence. But from there you have full access to the outside of dome, and you can just walk around and, you know, see what's out here. Also, you can get inside the well on Seatown by doing this glitch where an enemy knives you right as you're pulling out your Predator missile, which makes you close the laptop, and then you're kind of invincible, I think, which then allows you to drop down here, and there's actually a little Easter egg. There's one of the teddy bears down here. Now, also with the recon lunge glitch, you can also get on top of this like seating area on Arcaden, which kind of, you know, is a nice little room you're not able to get to normally, and you know, with the little lunge glitch you're able to explore up here and kind of walk around and see where people would be sitting and I guess having dinner or lunch if there wasn't like a war outside. This next one actually kind of crazy. So basically you can make it so you never put away your tablet of the chopper gunner. If you pick up a weapon and use the chopper gunner at the same time and then cancel it, you'll permanently have this tablet out. Now if you walk around with this tablet and you get near one of the televisions on this mission that is playing a soccer game, the soccer game will actually be projected onto the tablet and you can just kind of watch this game, you know, on the go. Also remember the out of bounds dome thing that we talked about earlier? There's also players who utilized it to get unlimited rounds in survival, and you would just kind of camp out here and just shoot the enemies coming in. But I guess that would only work until you run out of ammo, or I don't know, I'm not sure. Also, there was definitely a lot of weird stuff going on with the Predator missile, like this one where you basically jump off this truck and then pull out the Predator missile at the right time, which I think actually propels your player model to where the Predator missile is supposed to be. And then if you fall from the sky and you pull out the Predator missile again, it kind of stops you midair and you're able to survive the fall, and then you're able to get out of bounds here and, you know, see behind the scenes of this map and see what's going on all the way out here. Now, with the lunge jumping we mentioned earlier, where you know, cancel your lunge with the throwing knife, I think that's what it is, you can actually do some kind of cool, you know, little launches of the geometry on certain maps. And I mean, honestly, I can see this, you know, being used in some trick shot montage where someone is lunging and then spins around and does a no-scope on someone. Also, I found this glitch of a player looking at Yuri through one of those cameras you have on one of those missions. And, you know, Yuri isn't doing so hot. He's kind of just like standing there without a gun, and then, you know, he gets hurt. He takes damage, and I don't know what's happening to him. Maybe he's possessed? Now, famously on the map Terminal, there is a Burger Town location. And in Modern Warfare 3, you can actually get on top of it. Now, the way they do it in this video is by one of the players laying down, then the player that wants to be launched stands on top of him, and then the player laying down shoots the player standing with a shotgun, which propels him backwards. I'm not sure how this one works. Maybe it's something with the geometry of standing on the other player, but I mean, it seems to work. And then you're on top of Burger Town. You can kind of walk around in this square. There isn't too much to it, but this is an interesting little hiding spot, I guess. Also on Modern Warfare 3, there was some animation bug with the riot shield if you had a Kimbo guns equipped, where sometimes if you were laying against certain geometry, the whole body would bend and the player model would just kind of look funny, and it could lead to some funny situations and, you know, funny moments during matches. I do remember when playing Survival, there was this classic technique where you would call in a care package in like a corner, so you're like kind of safe, and you put down a turret, and then you would kind of lay into the care package, and the enemies actually couldn't hit you, but you could still shoot through the care package and hit the enemies. And it was actually kind of nice to survive some harder rounds. But I mean, the care package would disappear and you would have to call in a new care package, so this wasn't an unlimited invincibility glitch, but it was just a nice little glitch that worked and helped on some rounds. And I mean, throughout this video, there's a couple of, like, you know, NPCs freezing or weird death animations, but also MW3 had some, like this one where the soldier just kind of freezes midair after he died and he's just kind of half sitting there, and this is his final resting place. A while ago, we did a Modern Warfare 3 no-shoot attempt, and during the mission Return to Sender, we ran into this issue where after we didn't shoot all mission, and also never using that remote turret, but once you get to this roof, it seemed like you were required to access the remote turret, and upon doing so, the remote turret kind of just crashed and, you know, phased through some buildings, and after a little bit it would actually kill you and tell you that you are failing the mission because you didn't escape the crashing helicopter, which I guess so. And from there it got even weirder, because upon respawning, you would still see the overlay of the remote turret, and your gun would just be there and you would still be falling through the building, and it was just kind of this bizarre scenario that we got stuck in. Sometimes it could also happen that your bouncing Betty just bounces an insane amount to where it could get stuck on geometry that isn't even accessible for any player. MW3 also had a super bouncing glitch, which I think if it works anything like Halo is like you jump off something and then you hit like the angle of a geometry and it bounces you upwards, and you can get launched really high and you can do some cool trick shots. I'm not sure how it works, and I've never been able to pull it off in Halo or in Modern Warfare 3, so someone please explain to me how to do this, and maybe one day I'll be able to finally do a super bounce in a video game. Going back to Glitcher HD's videos, he also showed off an out of bounds trick on the DLC map Piazza, where you do that predator missile knife invincibility thing again, and then you're able to drop down and you're able to explore a lot of this map. You're able to walk down the staircase, and then you're able to kind of go to the beach and chill, and, you know, maybe you're able to relax in the sun, far away from all the other war that's happening in the match.
Man, do you guys remember how much hype there was around the release of Call of Duty Black Ops 2? Like, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 wasn't just a regular release. This was like the culmination of years of Call of Duty generally being perceived pretty well, and this was kind of the last highly anticipated Call of Duty game before Call of Duty kind of entered a little bit of a rougher period with future releases. So, a lot of people have fond memories of Black Ops 2, rightfully so. There was some really awesome features and mechanics in the game, the future setting was neat, and of course, there were some iconic glitches from back in this Call of Duty game as well. Like, for instance, do you guys remember that map Town? It was a part of Transit. We could also play it separately on its own. If you were playing like single player on Town, there was this glitch that a lot of people did, which was essentially the basic barrier glitch that we've looked at in the previous Call of Duty games, but with its own little twist. Essentially, if you went and you drank Quick Revive 3 times so that it would disappear, which in single player mode, it only costs 500 points, so it wasn't that big of a deal, you could make the machine disappear, and in turn, you could jump where the machine once was, and I guess the zombies think that you're on the other side of the machine that's no longer actually there, so it forms this like invisible wall where the zombies think that there is like a wall blocking them so they can't get by, which essentially gives you a little place where you can hide and camp and kill the zombies and get safe and ready for the next round to start. Some of you might remember the release of Mob of the Dead, which was that big zombies map that took place on Alcatraz, there was quite a few little glitches you could do on this map specifically, but one that was simple but also kind of challenging to do was this technique where you would hold a grenade and time it just perfectly so you would down yourself, but at the same time you'd be able to open up the door for free without having to spend money, which kind of a cool technique. Some people did it. Big picture, I don't know how important it was, but hey, you could save points as you went. If you're looking for some exploration, there was this like little railing that you could randomly clamber onto through the floor from like the upper jail balcony or prison cell balcony, and you could clamber up there and kind of explore these upper bunks. Nothing too crazy, but kind of a little area that you wouldn't expect to be able to get access to. It's interesting, you can like walk through some of the barriers and then zombies can't get to you on the other side, so that's neat. On the campaign level Odysseus, there's this weird occurrence. See, if you beat Black Ops 2's campaign and you make sure that Harper stays alive till the end of the game, because Black Ops 2 had like the branching story endings, you can then rewind and replay the mission Achilles Veil, but don't start the mission actually, then go back to the campaign menu and then do mission replay and play Achilles Veil and then kill Harper, and then you go and replay Odysseus. For whatever reason, Fareed will save Chloe and Harper will still kill Salazar, which essentially gives you a timeline that's not supposed to be possible in the game, which leads to some weird occurrences happening at the end of this level. Like, I don't even know what's happening inside of this helicopter at the end. I guess stuff's happening, but no one's there. This one's cool. It was, I guess, posted by a YouTuber named Max. Neat. This is his video on the screen. Cool. I just love things that like break timelines or break the possibility of what the game thinks is potentially allowed to be done. You can actually break out of bounds on the first level of the Black Ops 2 campaign by jumping on this turret and then using this as like a little height advantage to get on the side railing of the boat. You can walk along the siding a little bit, but then you can actually jump off of the boat altogether. And yeah, it kind of breaks the map and mission a bit, but look, here you are. You can swim around a bit, make your way up onto land, but eventually you probably will fall off of the map or fall out of the map to your death. Over on the mission Suffer With Me, if you're willing to do some parkour, you can get out of the map here by jumping on this fire hydrant, then jumping onto this truck, then jumping on these boxes, jumping on this soldier, and then jumping like up to the upper wall here. You can just fall out of the map here, but you can actually do a little bit more. There's a small borderline invisible railing you can walk along, and then from there you can actually get inside this building that normally you're not supposed to be able to get into this way. I mean, there's nothing in the building, but it's a spot you're not supposed to be able to get to. Over on the mission Old Wounds, it's that campaign mission where you're on the horse at the beginning. You can do some parkour on some of these little building structures and get on top of some roofs. They then give you access to like walk on this wall here that actually isn't a real wall, and you can fall through it, but it does give you access to the under the map area. This next one's more annoying than fun, but a lot of people have had this one happen to them just randomly when you're playing on that one campaign mission where you're supposed to be escorting the president of the United States to the prom night bunker, and for whatever reason, sometimes while you're driving, either some of the enemies won't load in or there's something wrong with one of the triggers where, for whatever reason, even if everything's safe and you've done everything correctly, I guess the president dies anyways, and you'll get the prompt that you failed to protect the president, and it reverts you to the last checkpoint. This is pretty much a soft lock and a wash where you have to usually restart the entire level. Sometimes people have had the issue continue to happen even after restarting their Xbox and the level, but yeah, just kind of an unlucky situation that apparently might have been patched early on, but maybe not fully patched because some people still reported to have this issue happen afterwards. So yeah, rest in peace those players. This next one I think you could do on multiple different maps, but it especially works on standoff. But if you load up into a capture the flag game by yourself, or I guess you could have someone else there, but I think it works better by yourself, and you have it set up as if you could have multiple teams than just like the two teams. If you stand in a certain spot and you essentially reload your spawn by changing teams, eventually you can roll the dice where you could respawn on top of the map randomly, and yeah, that gives you access to go explore this map more than what you normally can, like get on top of buildings and whatnot. I don't know why this works the way that it does, and sometimes standing in different locations can have different effects, and there's some guides that people have put out there showing the different locations you could get, but you can also do this and glitch just to the out of bounds area and go and explore the spots that you normally couldn't walk around in when playing multiplayer. On the multiplayer map Grind, there was a glitch that at least at some point might have worked, where you were able to possibly throw a grenade at the right time at this one van, and then when it explodes you would get launched out of bounds. This one's logistically weird because it was discovered in an old video by Speedy W03 when they realized that their teammate was randomly out of bounds, not contributing. Everyone on the team went back into theater and watched what happened, and it seemed like a player was very confused when he threw a grenade at the van and accidentally maybe jumped out of bounds, and then was really confused that he was out of bounds, and then just explored a little bit, and that was the gist of it. However, they weren't able to recreate the exact directional movement and speed that was required to get out of bounds when they tried to recreate create the glitch. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe this guy was cheating, but also his response when you watch the spectated screen of it seems like he was very confused that he'd gotten out of bounds. So yeah, he wasn't expecting that to happen, I think. There's a glitch that you can do on multiple different maps in Black Ops 2 to get out of bounds, but the control layout to do it is a little bit confusing. You have to do multiple things in quick succession, and that can, for whatever reason, cause one of the cameras that would typically be associated with a kill streak to give the traits of the player to that instead, I think is how I'm understanding it. I found this video by a YouTuber named Sorry, where he has someone in his game explain, except the dude explaining literally has the microphone way too close to his mouth. It definitely gives you the old school Call of Duty Xbox Live chat experience, but I don't know how helpful it is in explaining the glitch itself.
Stuff trying to kill you because you don't know the timing for like when to go do this and stuff, and it's just a lot easier to have your friend just kill you.
But I think long story short, you need to have these kill streaks, and you have to do the input where you knife, hit right on the D-pad, up on the D-pad, call in your black hat, and then right on the D-pad. But you also have to get killed by one of the crates or an explosion on a map to do the glitch. So I'm a little confused with the logistics of this one. So while you're doing the streaks, the crate needs to kill you, and then you call in your other VTOL. And at the same time, I think the camera is trying to force itself back onto your newly respawned player. Then you can use this time while you still have the VTOL called in to get as far out of bounds as possible, getting over to, like, for instance, on cargo, this crane looking area, and you could do a strafe jump, and by the time your VTOL expires, your camera will reset to normal, and you can go explore the outer sections of this map. Kind of cool. That YouTuber Sorry shows off the same glitch, except this time using an exploding car on the map Turbine to get similar results where you're able to go and explore the out of bounds areas of this map as well. In the video, Sorry also shows off a couple other locations, and they're cool and all. There's not that much really interesting outside of the maps on these specific areas, but it is useful for people who are trying to do like crazy trick shots, I guess, out of bounds. I mean, it's still kind of unfair if you're using this to like win in multiplayer, but hey, it's something that existed. And I really doubt Treyarch ever expected anyone to figure out that crazy button combination, kill streak combination to utilize it to break out of bounds. Body stretching is something that came back in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and we will still occasionally see this pop up from Call of Duty game from time to time, but yeah, it still did exist, at least at the time of Black Ops 2, and it's always interesting to see which Call of Duty games have the most weird body stretch glitches, but yeah, it's always fun whenever these ones pop up. When the Zombies map Die Rise came out, there were so many different glitches and ways out of bounds and just weird things. This map is so uniquely built that I feel like glitches by the community or glitches discovered by the community was kind of inevitable, but there is this one that's a little more interesting that YouTuber Nick with a 1 uploaded, where essentially if you're getting chased by like a big group of zombies, you can kind of run and jump on this like little ledge, and the zombies will just kind of hang out below you, not able to get to you. And it does state that if it piles up enough, they can hit you, but this is kind of a cool little trick that you could do in solo if you're trying to make it for a long time and you're in a, you know, dire situation. Over on Nuketown Zombies, you can actually get on top of one of the houses by having a zombie stand up on the balcony following you out, and if you time a knife lunge just correctly, you can actually use the momentum of the game for some reason trying to get you closer to stab the zombie and ride that all the way up through a barrier that then squeezes you out on the roof of the building. I cannot pull this one off for the life of me, but there is footage of it existing, so there it is. From there, you kind of get a lot of freedom to go and explore a lot of the other out of bounds sections of the map. As long as you're careful not to fall back on the main floor, you can continue to jump on objects and parkour your way around, putting you in a floor is lava type situation where you jump around and try not to touch the ground to break the glitch. But hey, I mean, this is a cool way to go explore an area, so I'm all for it. Also, in Black Ops 2, when you're playing that one level where LA is under attack, a couple of players have reported just weird instances of things happening. Like some players have been launched off of the map and then they're just stuck underneath the bridge, and they're invincible and they're taking a lot of damage, but they're just stuck down there under where all the action is supposed to be happening. On the level where you save woods, there's the occasional glitch that has happened to quite a few players where just for whatever reason in that final section where you're supposed to like clear the way so you could rescue woods and make your evac, you just won't have a gun. So yeah, you gotta just figure that out without a gun. On the campaign level Solarium, there's a glitch when you are doing the little like wingsuit part where right before you're supposed to pull your chute, you delay your chute, but you also like look up and try to steer as high as possible. You can sometimes fly over the deload zone or load zone that normally pulls you out of your wingsuit and has you like continue the mission as normally, and you can fly into like this wall and kind of glitch the game, which then gives you access to just fly around and just explore the area and glitch out of bounds a bit. Kind of a neat one, a little hard to do, but yeah, apparently this is still in the game. Over in Transit, there's this recurring glitch that happens for some reason where sometimes a player will just be like glitched out in the back of the bus getting dragged along. It looks pretty funny. Don't know why this happens. Also, on the zombies map Buried, there's a glitch that can sometimes happen to players where they get a teddy bear from the mystery box and a gun at the same time. And then the mystery box will sometimes teleport and you can't actually use the mystery box for the rest of the game. That is, unless fire sale pops up, then you could use the mystery box, but otherwise the mystery box is just unavailable to use. The glitch is rather rare, but it does happen enough where people have been annoyed by it. Call of Duty Ghosts was incredibly interesting. Not only would it be the last boots on the ground Call of Duty for over 3 years, it was the first Call of Duty game to make the jump to the then next gen consoles of Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and I think people were getting pretty burnt out with the yearly release structure of Call of Duty at this point, and Ghosts kind of got a really bad reputation. I don't think Ghost was as bad as people said that it was back in the day. There was some shortcomings, but nonetheless, some of the glitches in Call of Duty Ghosts were incredibly interesting. Like, there was this recurring glitch that I found multiple times while doing research for this video of this, like, face stretching. I don't know what's going on here, but this is hilarious. There's also this moment of the same exact glitch happening, just a different perspective. And then this time around, when it happens here, you notice that, like, the eyes are popping out. I don't know. There's this interesting glitch where it looks like Logan is, I don't know, just like circling around here. What is he doing? I don't know. This is just a funny AI breaking in Call of Duty Ghosts moment. Also, we see more of the weird body stretching glitching that started to happen in these later Call of Duty games pretty regularly, and here it happens again. There's actually a pretty cool glitch you could do on some multiplayer maps utilizing an IMS system to get yourself access to areas you're not normally supposed to go to. Like over on this multiplayer map Stormfront, you could use the IMS glitch and get all the way on top of the big structure, and utilizing this glitch where you like place the object down and use your gadgets or whatever, you're able to also glitch out of bounds on Prison Break as well. So you can like clip through this and then you're over here. Kind of interesting. Now, we've looked at a lot of glitches of players getting out of bounds so far in this video, but over in Extinction Mode, which was Call of Duty Ghosts Alien Survival Mode, which was kind of like the replacement to a zombie mode people would expect from Call of Duty, they had one of those rhino things in Extinction Mode glitch out of bounds and get on top of an invisible barrier. So it just looks like the rhino's flying or floating, but really he's just like standing on an invisible surface. On the multiplayer map Freight, I remember people camping and getting out of bounds on that map occasionally. There was this like little spot really high up, kind of in the middle of the map, that players would glitch up to and hide, and I always felt like it was a very unfair place to go. I mean, look at it. Also, the YouTuber Slippy Slides uploaded a ton of out of bounds things for Call of Duty Ghosts specifically that are kind of interesting to take a closer look at. Like, for instance, there's this glitch on Stonehaven if you wanted to get out of bounds there. You guys remember the campaign mission End of the Line? You can actually do some cool parkour on the outer railing sections, and if you like run alongside some narrow pathways, you make a couple of jumps, you stay on this railing, you don't fall to your death, and then if you make one more leap of faith at the end, you essentially get access to this big area outside of the map. This one might not be the most interesting map, but there is a lot of areas that you can go and explore. Like, it's a big wide area at the very least, so you can run around, which is kind of cool. I love it when you're able to break out of campaign levels like this. On the campaign level Struck Down, there's this like tipped over cart that blocks your way in this little area because you're supposed to go the other way. But you can actually jump on the railing here and leap across and avoid the obstacle, which gives you access to this little out of bounds area that then collapses into a bigger out of bounds area. Because the later part of those railings aren't even real railings, you can walk right through them and then turn around and you can jump out this tiny little window here, which gets you access to a much bigger area. You can pretty much see if you just walk along this, you drop out and you can just run through the entire skybox pretty much as freely as you want to. Back in the Extinction days, there was a trick you could do, which was essentially a glitch cheese technique to unlock more tooths for Extinction Mode, which was essentially an item that would help you unlock things to use in Extinction Mode. So there was like a benefit of grinding this and farming as many tooths as you could, and teeth? However many extinction teeth as you could. But if you went into split screen mode and you had one player using this like mount rocket grenade launcher thing, and the second player tries to hold and lift the mount, essentially you had unlimited ammo, and it made farming the extinction very easy because this is an incredibly powerful turret. You won't die from splash damage, you just have to shoot the floor below you, so it's a pretty safe bet. I don't know if they ended up patching this one out, but it was something that was definitely used in Extinction back in the day. There was also another trick on Extinction where if you used a ladder and you press like down, and A and switch your weapon at the same time, you essentially would have no gun when you landed, and then if you went and bought a gun, it would be added to your inventory, and by that, you would have just all the guns. How did this make it into the game? Also on Extinction, if you were on that one map that introduced like that Tesla fire weapon or whatever, it shot electric, if you just picked it it up and put it back down, it would fire way more frequently, and that was a good trick to have it just constantly go off versus having to wait for it to charge up. This also worked with other types of equipment as well, but this one was the most common. On the extinction map Nightfall, there was a trick where you could put a turret underneath stairs that would sometimes cause the enemies to either go above or beneath the turret, like they would just like clip to the next available space instead of going inside of the turret, and that would either cause the aliens to break through the barrier, but sometimes they would just disappear. That was a good technique to try to survive some of those harder waves. There's also a glitch you could do where there was like this machine gun turret that would shoot incredibly quickly. If you shot it out and then when it was cooling off, you quickly jumped off and jumped back on, it would mitigate the cooling time and also just shoot really fast. Kind of weird. There's this really dumb glitch on Mayday, which was that water boat extinction level, where if one of your teammates gets down at the very beginning when you're still on the boat and you go to revive them, you can actually just float and clip off of the boat because the boat's technically moving with or without you on it. It just drops you off in the water. I thought this would be a really cool out of bounds glitch, but you just die. But it's still technically a glitch, right? So it counts. Sometimes if you were playing Ghosts multiplayer, there was an occasional glitch where the dog just wouldn't function the way that dogs are meant to function. I don't know what's going on here. If we go back to that multiplayer map Stonehaven, you guys remember this one, the one that was like way too big for a Call of Duty map. There was also Infection that you could play on this map, but there was this area where if you like did the parkour just right, you could jump up into this like little window, then clip into this like tiny room that's not really a room, but I mean, this was an awesome hiding spot for Infection, and it definitely was a good hiding place until, you know, people caught on to where it was. There was also this really interesting visual glitch that could happen with your weapon, where your weapon no longer was on like the bottom right of your screen where it's supposed to be. It would be like oddly centered. Now the YouTuber Infrared68 actually explained the button combination to make your gun glitched, and I'm just gonna let him explain it because I just like the way he explains it. So let's play that clip.
Did a little bit of research, and this is what I found, is to press Y, press right bumper, right bumper, right bumper, and then left bumper, and then sort of right bumper, right bumper, right bumper again. Now, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but once you get the hang of it, it honestly feels like you're just sort of smashing the buttons and just pressing them like crazy. But, you know, make sure you're not doing that. Do have some rhythm to them. So I recommend going Y, right bumper, right bumper, right bumper, left bumper. And I know that sounded like a lot, but what I did there was Y, right bumper, right bumper, right bumper, left bumper, right bumper, and you don't really have to go all the way. Eventually, you'll see that you'll get into it.
Man, Call of Duty Ghosts was something else. 2014 was the year of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and it also was a year of firsts for the Call of Duty franchise. It was Sledgehammer Games' first main Call of Duty game with them as the primary studio through the entire development. It was the first game to have advanced movement. It was the first game to be on this version of the Call of Duty engine, one that would later on get abandoned, actually. It was kind of a fork of the Modern Warfare engine, but it was also different from the other engines. It was the Call of Duty to introduce Fs in the chat, and it was the Call of Duty with Kevin Spacey. So what glitches are there? Well, have you ever had a moment where you're playing Call of Duty Advanced Warfare and you think to yourself, I really wish I wasn't playing Call of Duty Advanced Warfare? Well, now there's a way you can just escape this world and leave the campaign behind, where on this one campaign level over here with the big old bridge, you can actually jump right on top of this helicopter and just head out with the helicopter. Why not? Just go for a little flight if you feel like it. I mean, it doesn't fully take you away, but hey, it does take you over the side of the bridge and gives you a unique angle for taking out combatants. This actually isn't the only time this glitch exists. There's several parts in the campaign where you were able to utilize flying vehicles to, you know, leave the bounds of the map. You could do it over on this section of the bridge as well with this different type of flying ship. And then later on in the campaign, you could also escape by using this like VTOL looking thing. You jump in for this cool animation, but then you can jump back out and jump on top and, you know, just catch a ride if you want one. YouTuber OGFTW actually found a couple of really cool out of bounds videos that he shared back in the day, like this one that's on the multiplayer map Recovery. It actually seems like that deployable riot shield that they added into this game did play a role in a lot of these glitches, where you're able to like place them down, jump on top of them, and get to a higher area. But hey, I mean, look at this view. What could beat it? This one that OGFTW also covered back in the day. OGZFTW? OGZXFTW? I'm sorry, dude. But still, I remember this one actually back in the day, and I would try to pull this one in multiplayer off, but I'd always get killed trying to do it, so it kind of just stayed one of those glitches I knew about, but never pulled off myself. But yeah, on the multiplayer map Ascend, it gave you access to this like upper area that was a pretty good vantage point. And then you guys remember that map that had all of that grass on it? It was called Instinct. There were a couple of ways you could actually pull out of this map, but essentially you could land up in this one specific spot that would then allow you to break through the barriers of the map, gaining access to the outer bounds area that would then let you clip back into the geometry of the map, and once again give you a very unfair advantage on other players. Once again, one of those spots that took so much setting up that probably wasn't too viable in multiplayer itself, but it was something that people tried to do, or at least would do it in private matches. This next one I want to say actually got patched out of the game because people were using it in Infection, kind of ruining some lobbies, but there was a trick you could do to get up on top of the buildings, and it was pretty basic. It literally was just some double jumps with your exosuit to get up on this little ledge, and then from there you could jump over a barrier that was supposed to stop you from getting on the roof, and then run along the side, do a couple of other little tricks like this, and then move this way, and then boom, look at this, you're outside of bounds in an Infection match-made lobby. Kind of not fun to make everyone have to wait for the game to end because you're hiding in a place that no one can get to you, but yeah, this was a glitch to get out of bounds. There were a couple other little glitches associated with Detroit as well that I remember from back in the day. Like, there were a couple of ways that people would find to get up on top of the rails. That one was kind of cool because I thought the whole rail system in the Detroit level was interesting in itself, so hey, in a multiplayer, that's neat. Okay, do you guys remember the map Green Band from back in the day? This map actually had some really cool glitches because if you could get out of bounds, the exploration and glitches you could do were kind of endless. Like, you could be bouncing around out of bounds, your player model could be glitching out depending on how far out of bounds you go. I'm pretty sure you just straight up fly out of bounds, by the way. Like, if you're out there, you're flying or floating. I don't know what this counts as. But honestly, you could surprisingly see from a very, very long way out, and you can also look at like the holograms and some of the other buildings while you're out there, and I don't know, I like the feel of this map. It was cool. There's essentially this little corner that you can sprint, run, dash, and move forward with like all the movement together. Probably something best done in a private match. If you essentially hover against this barrier right at the edge of the map long enough, you can kind of clip right around it and get up onto this railing where you could recharge all your jumps and stuff. And then from there, you just follow this route all the way around, and you can get access to some of these back buildings and get access to the roof. But if you wanted to do the floating glitch, which is a little bit different, it was actually a glitch that was more prominent on multiple maps back in the day, but I think got patched out, where in Capture the Flag, if you were hovering while taking the flag, for whatever reason, your hover traits would just be unlimited when the flag was captured, allowing you to fly around. So I think that's how people were able to do all of this flying and stuff. But Green Band is really interesting because this map had so many different ways to break out of the map. I'm actually surprised they implemented the map with how broken it was. I mean, you can go back on YouTube and find countless videos of people showing different strategies and techniques for breaking out of this specific map. Probably more than any other map in Call of Duty history, with just how many different techniques there were. Still, I think the floating glitch is the cooler way to experience this map because not only did it work here, but it worked on all multiplayer maps at the time before it was patched out. So if you have a base version of the game, like unpatched, you can go and do this glitch and go explore all of these maps out of bounds in any way. And some of the maps have really cool like skyboxes or cities in the distance that it's interesting to get a different look at. So this one definitely gets like a little A+ bonus point. Remember how earlier in the video we talked about like the little shotgun bouncing that some players would do to like get a couple feet higher onto another platform? Well, in Advanced Warfare, there was a more extreme version of that where using a rocket launcher and a technique or a certain lineup specifically, you could launch yourself way out of the map. And I don't know, I just think this is such a big evolution from the little jumps we used to do to where we are now. There's this really pointless glitch where you could essentially keep your tablet from a kill streak open for longer time without anything being on the screen. You had to like lay down in the water, call in a rocket or something, and then after that, you had to get another one and just call it in normally, and then for whatever reason after that one, you would just have the screen out. It just looked a little goofy. Some of you might remember the campaign mission Atlas. There's actually a little cool trick you can do where you jump on some bushes that then get you access to the top part of this house, and then essentially from there you can see through the walls and kind of glitch around a little bit, but you can actually back travel around the back of the house and make your way into the swimming pool, which is normally inaccessible. If you wanted to explore a massive area, YouTuber Chaotic Perfection found a way to glitch out of the campaign level biolab by doing a couple of precise jumps on some walls and then boost it over, which then if you like just walk out of bounds a little bit and then go under this, you have access to the wider like sandbox of the map. I mean, there's not too much to see, but it is a big area to go and explore. You can even come back and get underneath the map and see through the floors and stuff, which is kind of neat. I was watching this one video of someone playing the campaign, and on the campaign level fishing, they're like running around, you know, just playing the game like normal, and they kind of duck for cover or start to get into cover, and boom, they just randomly fell through the map. Don't know why this one happened, but yeah, I don't know how to recreate that. There's that one campaign level where you have to escape through the sewers, and you're supposed to like climb up this ladder, and then the manhole cover opens up and you continue on. But for whatever reason, for some players who were trying to do this, they would get to the manhole cover and it would just stay closed, and you couldn't do anything until the prompt came up saying you failed to escape. Thanks, Sledgehammer. Okay, so then there's this glitch where I don't honestly even know what's happening here, but yeah, it's a glitch. I think the dude's dead already. Since Call of Duty Advanced Warfare did use kind of its own engine that was this like hybrid of the old Modern Warfare 2-3 engine that was still different, sometimes the classic glitches we saw weren't commonplace, like the body stretches or other things we've talked about, but then other times there'd be glitches we've never seen before that are kind of exclusive to Advanced Warfare, like these weird camera movements and player model movements. I mean, in this next one, it looks like this guy's spinning out of control, I think. Okay, then interestingly enough, hidden in the game files, there's actually a fully supported third-person mode. This isn't technically a glitch, but it is something that's fully functioning and in the game, and I just wanted to mention it here because it looks like at some point maybe there are plans to bring back that third-person mode. If you guys remember, Modern Warfare 2 had like third-person playlists where you could run around in third-person mode, and it was interesting. I think they brought it back in one of the more modern Call of Duties too, and it was a terrible experience for me. I try to block it out. Nonetheless, Advanced Warfare might have thought about doing it first, but ultimately they ended up cutting it completely out of the game. What's really interesting is that a lot of the settings in the game, like the controls and stuff, are still implemented. So like whatever the button layouts were back in the day would have still worked in Advanced Warfare. So it could have been a remnant from that Modern Warfare 2-3 engine that they first worked on to make this specific build of the engine. But yeah, I think this one's just a little bit out there, a little bit different. And shout out to the I Hate Comp VIR for finding this one. There were also some other zombie glitches found in other maps as well, like Carrier and whatnot. Once again, it's kind of the typical like zombies just walk up to an invisible wall and can't hit you, mostly because they can't reach you because you're standing on some geometry that the game didn't intend for you to get to. But yeah, that kind of wraps it up for Advanced Warfare, which would bring us to the next game, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 was also a pretty big deal when this game released too. It was the first Black Ops game to make the big jump to the whole advanced movement, but it definitely was not as extreme as Advanced Warfare's advanced movement, so people were pretty excited about this one generally. And just like with the rest of the games, we're going to look at all the different glitches that Black Ops 3 had. This one specifically is interesting because the support Black Ops 3 had for zombies was insane. There was so much love for zombies. I think a lot of people like Black Ops 3 for maybe even that alone specifically, with just the amount of things that were in that game. There was one glitch that was kind of interesting, but it does take quite a bit of setup where you have to essentially set up a class, have certain gobble gum specifically, and you want to do it offline, I think. You have to have things like Perkaholic, you have to have Mule Kick, you have to have 3 guns in different slots. You then have to grab a gun off the wall by this gobble gum. The gun will already start glitching out, but then there's more to it. Then you have to roll for Fatal Contraption out of the gobble gum and then pick up a death machine. And for whatever reason, if you set up your class correctly ahead of time, you should be able to have an unlimited death machine, but just coming out of your regular CUDA. There's another way you can do this glitch without even having to use the gobble gums, but YouTuber WWII put a tutorial out last October that kind of explains how to go through and do both of these glitches. So if this is something you wanted to recreate, you could probably watch his video, but it is cool just to watch this gun kind of like spam out, just shooting forever. On Black Ops 3 Nuketown, there's actually a couple of cool places you can access. Like you can get kind of stuck up on this wall here, which gives you a little bit of a vantage point, or you could even run out of bounds, and while the timer is ticking down getting ready to kill you, if you go into this specific corner, you can actually just stop the timer from going off. Could be a good hiding spot for a minute if you're playing Michael Myers in custom games. Over in the multiplayer map Hunted, there's actually an older trick that I'm not sure you can still do, but it was there back in the old days, where you could wall run and essentially backwards mantle jump into this wall, which would give you access to this little out of bounds section or under the map partially section. So yeah, these little glitches still existed even as we get closer to the modern era of Call of Duty. In Black Ops 3, there was an ability called Glitch, which essentially was supposed to be like something to conceal players a little bit better, but it ended up causing an actual glitch that would allow people to be straight up invisible. And while they did make attempts to patch this, occasionally there still were players to put together classes that allowed the glitch to occur. I'm not 100% sure how this works, but I've seen videos of people as recently as a few months ago going into theater to prove that players on the other team were doing the invisibility glitch, which obviously isn't fair. On the Giant, the zombies map that was like pre-order bonus, but it was like the remake of Dariza from World at War. If you went to the classic catwalk where everybody would normally camp, you could actually now walk on this little side section where you already think you might be safe, but zombies can actually still get behind you and hit you through the fence. But if you go around and get to this corner and carefully make your way across, you can actually get to a point where the zombies won't be able to hit you and they'll just kind of group up in this corner. Now, I do think eventually if there's too many zombies, they'll still be able to hit you through the wall, but this is a good way to mitigate some of the damage you could take if you needed a quick second to reload when you're training zombies around. YouTuber Dylan Hawker found this interesting glitch on Moon where you can essentially jump on top of this invisible barrier, which gets you into this little corner outside where you can get into a safe spot, which allows the zombies who are trying to come after you to pile up in one area and you can just shoot them. I think you guys probably have kind of mostly gotten the point of how a lot of these pile up tricks generally work, and we've seen so many already that we're not going to necessarily go into every single pile up trick in Black Ops 3 because Black Ops 3 has so many zombie maps, we'd be here all day. But every time there's a really cool one, maybe we'll talk about it just because of, you know, the variety of it there. Do you guys remember that Call of Duty Black Ops 3 came out on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 still, despite the fact that it was 2015, end of year 2015? 2015, mind you. So that's cool. I think it's fun just to look at glitches that were done on the Xbox 360 side of things. Like on this map, Aquarium, you can actually wall run around this corner and get up on this little ledge back here, which is definitely out of bounds. Also, if you stand on this rope thing and you jump sideways, you can kind of feather your booster a little bit and then clamber on an invisible barrier and pull yourself up onto another barrier that's on the very top part of the map. From there, if you just pay attention to the geometry that's below you, you could run and essentially explore the outer bounds of this map from the upper part of it. There's even this little corner that you can stand on, and like if you keep kind of walking and climbing backwards, eventually you'll clip into this air conditioning unit and nobody can see you. You could just shoot out of it at people. So if you've ever been killed by an air conditioning while playing Call of Duty Black Ops 3 on the Xbox 360, now you know how it might have happened. I found a lot of these glitches from the YouTuber S Sato. I think he's pretty big in the Xbox 360 Call of Duty Black Ops 3 glitches scene, so there's that. There's a couple other cool spots that he's shown off, like little hiding spots that could give you an advantage in multiplayer, like where you're halfway through a wall, or maybe you're climbing on top of a barrier that's not supposed to be there. And I don't know, kind of interesting that there was like a separate community of Black Ops 3 glitches. I don't know how many of these carried over across the Xbox 360 PS3 version to the newer Xbox One and PS4 versions of the game. You know, I just wanted to remember that this was the last Call of Duty game to release on the Xbox 360 PS3. I do think with the older gen version of the game, some things were kind of looser with corners cut maybe. Like for instance, on Shadows of Evil, there's like this simple glitch you can do by just climbing over this railing and slowly walking down, and you're essentially floating there above the map. I don't think the zombies can even get to you too easily until there's like too many, then they'll probably clip through and kill you. But yeah, just little things like that, little odds and ends that I don't think would have happened on the main release of the game, but maybe were left over on the older gen versions. Over in the Black Ops 3 campaign, over on this one section where you're supposed to go on this zip line and you get the call out to also use your Z tracks, if you kind of hit them at the same exact time, sometimes the game will try to catch up with the movement that is going on while also thinking it's activating the Z tracks, and it can cause for some really weird effects to happen. Also, in one of the early levels of the game, I think if you run just straight in this one direction for whatever reason, the game will give you the countdown that you're going out of bounds. But if you just keep pushing through and you run into this wall, for whatever reason, you can sometimes fall through the floor and your countdown timer will go away, but you end up landing in this weird void space where your guns look like they're made out of chalk or something, and you're kind of just stuck there until you revert. Yeah, I don't know why this one's here. There's also another glitch that can occasionally randomly happen in Call of Duty Black Ops 3's campaign where NPCs will just freeze up, and it's a little awkward because you're like, well, what's going on? We're not talking about like the traditional soft lock where like, you know, they're hiding behind cover waiting for you to kill an enemy that might not be there. These guys are just straight up frozen in place for whatever reason. Call of Duty Black Ops 3's campaign also had co-op mode, which is often a forgotten thing since only a handful of Call of Duty games ever done co-op. But with that, sometimes there's glitches that maybe would have been patched sooner if Call of Duty had more experience doing co-op games. But like just goofy things like random furniture pieces or geometry getting stuck in cooperative player models can be really hilarious at times. On the campaign level, Demon Within, there's a bunker that if you're playing co-op mode and you have one of your friends stand underneath by the little like ammo crate and you stand and lay down on top and aim like this, you essentially have unlimited ammo and for whatever reason rapid fire. It doesn't work anywhere else, just in this one direction, but it is a weird thing that just occurs here. Over on that one campaign mission where you're up in like the tower, if you actually jump out of the window and you go kind of a specific way, there are little ledges you can land on that can then give you access to floors and areas that aren't actually walled off, even if they look walled off, and you can go and explore random parts of this building, but like in the back rooms of Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Also, when playing through one of the later levels of the campaign, a user posted on YouTube this weird glitch where they thought that they were soft locked in that one level where you're like in that weird Inception looking world with the walls and stuff that are sideways. And he was like trying to figure out what was going wrong, what was going on, and why the level wouldn't progress. And then all of a sudden this happened. I don't know what's going on here. The description of the video says, so Sarah Hill is glitched or something and the mission wouldn't continue. But like, what is going on here? This is almost scary. It's like a creepypasta, but was actually caught on camera. Also, every once in a while, as we know from this video so far, the campaign character's AI might occasionally break, and it looks like Hendrix is going through it right now. And then over on the campaign level Vengeance, there is this one section of the level where there's these buildings here, and essentially if you just kind of run these laps while wall running and like jump and turn around and wall run back the other way, you can keep doing it over and over and over again and slowly gain height, getting up higher and higher and higher, and eventually you'll be above the building but still going up, and from there you can get up on top of this invisible barrier, and then you have access to go and explore the out of bounds section of this campaign level as well. There's not much to it, but hey, it's a cool little area out of bounds from Black Ops 3. Sometimes when you're playing multiplayer, the dead bodies might still have some life left in in them, I guess. I mean, I don't know what you call this. Also, a lot of people know that in the Black Ops games, you can play off against AI for multiplayer practice or whatever, you know, those combat simulants or whatever you want to call them. But I remember a big controversy back in the day, surprisingly, where people were upset that the bots were teabagging after getting kills, which is an insane thought, and even Treyarch announced that they didn't program the bots to teabag people, but it looks like there is an issue with the AI at sometimes where, you know, they just kind of do goofy things, like if they get stuck in a doorway, they might just like teabag instead, like what you're seeing here. And just in general, I loved these bots. I thought they were so funny, just the weird things they would do. I mean, sometimes they would get some nasty kill, but otherwise, sometimes you would just be like, what on earth is going on here? It's like watching a new player learn how to play video games for the first time. But yeah, it was like a almost sentient moment. I still think it would have been a good idea to let the bots teabag players. All right, let's move on to Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which released in 2016 and brought Call of Duty to the most futuristic setting we had seen so far. The campaign itself was pretty much a sci-fi space shooter adventure with some more, but this game does have some of the most notorious glitches of all time that are kind of stand out. Like in the campaign, there's this really creepy glitch. I don't even know how to explain what's happening here, but this body over here will start making noises and the mouth moves when the body is dead already, kind of like one of the glitches we looked at earlier, and I just think this one's really odd. So let's go ahead and just play this one back. Does anyone else remember Spaceland Zombies or Zombies in Spaceland? It was like this really cool theme park zombies map that took place in the 80s. Probably one of the highlights that came out of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. But there is an interesting glitch. Now, Zombies reverted back to the more basic gameplay style where your boots on the ground, but there was a glitch you could do to get an easy exosuit, which makes Zombies a whole lot easier. There's quite a few steps to it, and it's been patched periodically, but I think nowadays the steps that are kind of out there mostly work. I don't think Infinity Ward plans on going back and patching an old game like this. But there's quite a few steps. You got to open up the whole map, go into the arcade, shoot some hoops to get enough points or tickets saved up. You can play some of the other games to get the tickets quicker as well. Then you have to run, find this transponder device, but you don't want to buy it yet. You want to go and instead find the cryo grenade and purchase that for 350 tickets. You need to use the Skull Hacker Fate of Fortune card. Then you have to run and find the rewind grenade. Then you have to time picking up the rewind grenade at the same time as you essentially cooking that cryo grenade so that the purchase goes through, but you're still holding the cryo grenade, essentially having an extra alternate type of grenade. Then you gotta head back to the arcade. You have to find the Ghost in Skulls game. Essentially, when you enter it, it causes you to drop your grenades, and it treats the cryo grenade as a rewind grenade, I think, but pulls you out of the machine, but you get to keep the gun that you would get from the machine. Then you have to quickly make your way to the ATM, withdraw 2,000 points, run to the Up and Atom machine, which is like quick revive essentially. Then you have to run all the way back to where you first saw that transponder device that we didn't buy. And mind you, at this point, you are limited to how much time you have to do this because the gun's on like a timer for the arcade game. But then you gotta throw your transponder essentially right over here by this lake, just at the right angle. You want to stand in between this railing. It'll give you a prompt that you failed something, and then you jump into the river, and then the game will kill you or respawn you back at the arcade. And after all of that, you'll respawn with an exosuit, which is kind of incredible. The exosuit's pretty OP, so this glitch is pretty cool. I kind of just did the quick rundown of how it works, but if you want to watch a better version of it, check out YouTuber Woeful Chip, who did a better, more in-depth explanation. Do you guys remember that smaller multiplayer map Genesis that was kind of cool? This map's actually really cool if you can get out of bounds to go explore and just see what's all out there. This one's a little tricky, but if you jump really high by this wall here, then run ahead and perfectly time a rewind grenade, it'll fling you back up to the upper height of your jump where you were, and from there you can kind of spring another type of upward movement with a jump, and that should fling you up high enough, and if you do it correctly, you'll land on top of the map barrier. You get access to already a pretty big outside area and a nice view of the ocean, but if you then go over to where the train monorail tracks are or whatever, and you walk along those as like a guideline to not fall off the map, you can kind of see this little like cliffside here, and you want to jump past it. There is a death barrier that'll kill you after a few seconds, so you want to make sure you jump far enough, but if you jump far enough, boom, you're out of bounds and you're free to go explore the little roads down there. You can get an up close look at the train or some of the cars driving by, and I think that that's kind of a cool aspect of this specific glitch. Infinite Warfare also brought back the famous map Terminal from Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, and once again, you can glitch out of this map and explore the outer bounds here. If you line yourself up in that kind of long hallway that had those big windows looking outside and kind of lay in the broken glass over here, you can do a very specific lineup, and if you use your ability that looks like this, I don't remember what this was called. Is that the FTL jump thing? Nonetheless, you use it, it pushes you backwards and it glitches you underneath the map kind of. From there's some pathways you can run alongside, even wall jumping, or using your FTL jump again to get a little further boost. It's a pretty cool little under the map glitch, but there's another glitch also on this map that gets you fully outside. When you do the glitch to get under the map, you can run around the barriers a bit and kind of get around the back side of the map where these elevator things, or where I guess the elevators would be. There's kind of this tricky corner where you want to wall jump and then kind of double jump across, and you can clip through this wall and bam, you're outside in outer space, just free roaming around the terminal area. This one's pretty awesome. There's also a trick that you can do with this same glitch, essentially using the FTL jump over on the map Frontier, where if you lay down in a specific corner, you jump through and boom, you're out underneath the map. This one's kind of neat. You get kind of in the little exteriors of the map, but you can't go too far out because there's a lot of death barriers, but still a neat little trick. And I think in general, just the FTL jump is capable of breaking quite a few maps. So even if we don't talk about a specific out of map glitch, you could always try yourself. Just kind of find a corner, lay down, see if you can clip through the wall and hope for the best. A good spot to get practice with this glitch is on the multiplayer map Precinct, because there's actually this little like crack in the wall where you don't even have to do the laying down part. And if you just kind of line yourself up here, do the jump, make sure you're lined up the right way, you can clip through and it'll just kind of drop you off under the map and you can start running around. Okay, remember how in Spaceland Zombies earlier we did the whole glitch to get the exosuit early? Technically there's another cool glitch you can do similarly, where you don't necessarily go into the game and get the gun so that you respawn with the exosuit, but instead if you get the transponder, you can throw it a specific way over by that riverbed where you normally would and use this as an area of access to jump out of the map versus going down the river and trying to force yourself to die. You can then glitch up into this rock, and there's a little bit of tricky maneuvering and parkour you have to do, but if you make your way up and out of the map well enough, you'll essentially quickly find there's a lot of walls and surfaces you can clip through to explore, and in a lot of the cases the zombies can't even get to you, so a double barrier here because now you don't have to worry about dying. There's quite a few guides on how to do this specifically if you want to go step by step, but it is pretty cool. There are quite a few little areas you can go and explore. Now I won't spend as much time on this next one, but if you remember Raven the Redwoods, it was the DLC map that came out later on for Infinite Warfare. There is another out of bounds glitch you can do similarly to the one in Zombies in Spaceland. Once again, it utilizes the transponder and you have to do it on this like Turtle Island rock or something, and it gives you access to the out of bounds section. In general, when it comes to DLC maps, not as many people bought it for Infinite Warfare, so it is cool to see that some people who did purchase it managed to still find glitches and share them online. On the flip side, over on the third DLC map, the radioactive thing one or whatever this was, there is this glitch where you can use one of the trap devices unlimitedly as much as you would like. This one essentially just involves you picking up and replacing the item over and over and over again, and every time the item is placed down, it is fully charged so you can use it without the cooldown. Kind of like one of the other glitches we talked about earlier on, which worked in Extinction mode, which was made by the same developer, Infinity Ward. So it makes sense that this glitch would probably persist here. I think this one might have been patched out of the newer versions of the game, so you might have to revert to an older build of the game to pull this glitch off still, but it was a pretty good trick if you're trying to do an Easter egg or just trying to survive for a long time, having something reliable like the trap to just continuously keep you going. For a while, there was also this other glitch on this map where if you went up to the big death ray beam that's overlooking this cliff, you could line yourself up perfectly and then turn around and the zombies just wouldn't attack you for whatever reason. I don't know why this one works. And then some of you probably remember that last DLC map from Zombies where essentially it brought back the extinction monsters from Ghosts but also had zombies. If you use this entangler gun and you grab Neil's head, you can throw it down these stairs, it explodes, you run over to this big open area and then train zombies while you have the Black Friday card activated. Kill all the enemies, and when the Black Friday card expires or whatever, I guess if you start punching the enemies, you get way more points than you normally would get points for punching zombies, and it's like a little trick to, you know, boost up some money and get a ton of money very quickly, and that can help you with the Easter egg on this one. Also, while doing research for this video, I found this weird glitch, and honestly, I don't even know what's happening here. I guess he punched his teammate in the campaign, and then his teammate got back up and kept running in place even though there was another dead body there, I think. This one's really weird.
Let's get to the weapon before the teams check in. Entry point's 30 meters dead ahead. Keep moving.
And then over on the campaign level, Operation Bloodstorm, like the refinery one, if you use the little equipment that lets you put up a foam wall, that's kind of like the Azami barriers from Rainbow Six Siege, you go up to this like fence area and you throw it right at the right angle where it pops up right next to you. It can actually force your character model to push through these rocks and fence and give you access to the out of bounds section of this map as well. I don't really know what more you're supposed to do over here, but you can run around a bit and I guess that's cool. There's really not that much to see. It's a lot of rocks and I don't know, what is that? Methane gas in the sky? Maybe? If that's, or I think this takes place on, is this the one that takes place on Titan? Maybe? I don't remember. Nonetheless, a cool little glitch for, you know, campaign players out there. All right, now we're moving on to Call of Duty World War II. Released in 2017, this was Sledgehammer Games' second attempt at making a game. This was technically the follow-up to Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, but World War II and no exosuits, and the mark of the return to boots on the ground gameplay, which was a pretty exciting deal. Now get ready though, because for this first glitch, if you like some parkour or 1940s aesthetic parkour, then this glitch might have been for you before they patched it. I really like this one. There's a really cool way to get out of the map or on top of the map on Sainte Marie du Mont. You essentially jump on top of a car, then jump across to this thing, do a little leap across to the other side of the fence, then you do a smaller leap, but this actually gets you on top of the fence. Then you turn around, backtrack the fence, which then gives you access essentially to being able to jump up on top of the roof of this building here. Now, being on top of this building is cool and all, but you can also go a little bit further if you drop down onto this little, like, I don't know, tower satellite thing. Antenna, that's the word I'm looking for. Then you jump across to this other truck, jump onto this shed, and then you can get on the roof over here. From there, this roof gives you access to some of the other roofs, and that's pretty cool, like a little nice out of bounds area. Call of Duty World War II was interesting because the zombies mode that was introduced in this game was of course different from the lore of the other zombie modes, but also it kind of was a darker and grittier zombies compared to what we had had in recent years. Though there were some weird technical glitches that would come with the new zombies map, like sometimes when you're just like running around, parts of the map would deload and you could see through the map by like looking through windows. Over on the campaign side of things, there was also some weird occasional glitches that could occur where whenever you were in certain firefight sections, you would randomly be taking a lot of damage, but your player wouldn't die for whatever reason, essentially making you invincible, but it looked like you were constantly taking damage at the same time. Do you guys remember the campaign level Liberation? It takes place like in the part of World War II where you're liberating France. Similar to some of the glitches we looked at on Nuketown earlier, there's an out of bounds area where you can run through the barrier, clip inside of this building, and if you run far enough before the timer runs out, the timer will stop as the game thinks you're back in bounds, even though you're clearly not. From there, you can wait for the cooldown timer to chill out, and then you can run even further out of bounds until the timer disappears off your screen again, and then boom, you have access to explore the larger out of bounds area of this campaign mission. You might run into some invisible barriers from time to time, but overall, it's a pretty cool large section to run around and explore and go see some dark streets while you're out there. Also, sometimes in Call of Duty World War II, cutscenes would glitch out, like this specific one where bro is just running in the background while a cutscene's playing. I don't know, I love that.
Thanks, sir.
You'll be alright, son.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
There's another glitch you can do on the campaign mission Operation Cobra, where essentially you do two pretty simple jumps and you can get out of bounds on this whole section and actually get underneath the map, under like the farm and stuff, and see what it looks like from down there. Shout out to Sneaker Street for making this guide and a couple other interesting Call of Duty World War II glitch guides. Also in Call of Duty World War II, sometimes ladders will have some interesting glitches. Like for instance, some players have reported that when climbing ladders, if there's like an NPC set to also climb the ladder, they will just force their way right through you. Doesn't matter if you're on the ladder first, they are like, get out of the way, we're here, we're going to the top. All right, some of you might remember this from the multiplayer side of things, but Call of Duty World War II introduced this like headquarters area. It was like a little like hub world where you could go and like turn in bounties essentially, or open up loot boxes. There was like a little area you could like practice weapons, a little firing range. It was a neat little area and you could see other players running around doing their thing, but sometimes the game would disconnect or have some weird lag issues and can cause some weird things to happen. Like if a host disconnects in headquarters, sometimes all the other players will just freeze in place and you're just kind of stuck in this weird headquarters void with players that are like frozen. For a while, there was this hilarious glitch, top tier glitch, where for whatever reason, if you used like this sit down emote and you like timed it right with your movement, you could continue to move while sitting down and it just looked like people were sliding around on their butts in the headquarters. I think this is like the greatest thing ever. This should become an official feature in Call of Duty and maybe a game mode also while we're at it. But that's just me. Sometimes weird things can happen where objects will spawn in when you're playing the campaign. Like some players reported that they'd be like laying down and debris would just spawn on top of them in the middle of whatever part of the campaign they were in. Sometimes on the main menu, when you're going through the HUD looking at player models, the player models would not look normal for whatever reason. They would end up looking like this. Also, sometimes there was like a little animation that would play during the end screen of certain multiplayer levels just to make things seem a little more cinematic, and sometimes these animations would glitch severely and cause for kind of hilarious cutscene moments that would happen at the end of a multiplayer game like this in particularly. Do you guys remember that one multiplayer map from this game that had those like train cars all lined up? I remember there was a glitch people would do on Infection where they would like get up on top of the trains, and then if you do a couple of precise jumps, you can get to this like invisible barrier that's higher than the trains, and players don't necessarily look for you all the way up there because you're a couple feet above the trains. Kind of an unfair spot. It's good for killing zombies too because they can't get to you very easily, and yeah, this one persisted for quite a while. Also, this game had prop hunt finally introduced again, and prop hunt's always really fun, but there's always been glitches, and this is something that kind of comes up with Call of Duty and prop hunt from time to time, where players are able to find hiding spots that are pretty much like they shouldn't be allowed, like you're straight up inside of another object, which makes it very difficult for, you know, players to find you. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. I feel like there needs to be better attention made to some of the objects that are allowed in the game, and these need to be patched out, but still, some people are clever and find these spots, and yeah, they exist for quite a while. Also on Final Reich, which is the zombies map, if you get some insane timing where you activate the trap and buy a perk at the same time, like right here, you can sometimes just fall right through the floor and then you're under the map, which is kind of crazy. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was a very interesting game, to say the least. This game was kind of the experimental phase for Call of Duty, as the multiplayer switched to a hero shooter styled hybrid, and the campaign was cut altogether, and instead they went for introducing a battle royale. Now, the battle royale mode itself, while Blackout was actually pretty fun back in the day, it was definitely made in a shorter amount of time than what you would expect for a battle royale game. So, in turn, there were quite a few glitches of varying degrees that were in the Blackout side of this game. And while some of the glitches would end up getting patched, other glitches would remain for quite some time. So we're going to kind of just go back through history and look at any glitch that was available or is still available to this day. Like, for instance, on Blackout, there's this house over here where if you utilize a grapple hook and you shoot it up at this light, you can actually fling yourself through the ceiling into this little void space between floors of this building. And from there, since you're technically out of bounds, you can actually drop down to the lower section of the house and get underneath the house, which definitely isn't fair if you're using this competitively against other players, but it's something that people did do. There's also this interesting helicopter glitch that people would sometimes do, where if you ran around, you could throw some trophy systems on the little side part of the helicopter, which would protect you from actually getting shot down, which is insane. You could then fly your helicopter with your team all the way out of bounds almost to this little border area, and right when you have the countdown telling you to turn back, you can switch seats to the passenger, and because you're right on this edge, the helicopter will try to spin and not go out of bounds, and for whatever reason, since you're in the passenger seat, it won't like blow up the helicopter, and instead it kind of spins through the barrier that exists there, and you can jump back in the pilot seat and continue to fly upwards after the little 360 spin is done. Then if anything happens where the game tries to force you out of the helicopter, you can just do that same trick to bypass the crashing of their helicopter by jumping out, spinning, and jumping back in the driver's seat. And then players would just like wait in their helicopter above the final circle. Sometimes players would bring along other things to help them, like Outlander and trauma packs, and essentially they're just going to stay in the circle as long as possible, and then they're going to try to use their healing items to outlast anyone else once the circle completely closes, essentially just killing anybody who's down on the ground looking to get in the final firefight. It's kind of an unfair cheese to do this, and I think it's up to the developers of a battle royale to prevent players from doing tricks like this, but these types of tricks exist in all battle royale games. People have done stuff like this across every BR. Of course, Call of Duty Blackout had to have their own version of it, and I think this was it. There was also another glitch over on Alcatraz where, using that grapple hook trick that we looked at earlier, you could also glitch into this wall as well, which led to some very unfortunate situations for players who were not glitched into the wall, who were trying to win Blackout legitimately. Over by the one big building area, if you parked a truck or two here where this elevator lift can come down and then call the elevator lift down, the elevator will cause the two trucks to glitch out and essentially pressure launch the trucks or blow the trucks up into various directions, which could have varying results, like being completely launched out of the map, just goodbye, there you go, far away, or you can get a softer launch where you maybe don't go as far. I love glitches like this. Any type of pressure launch glitch in a game like Call of Duty or Halo, always incredible. Interestingly enough, if you get launched so far out of the map, you'll see the like return to battlefield type screen, and then you can even go past that. Eventually you can just get stuck out there where you're like swimming in thin air, or you can get launched so high straight up, the map is being viewed at from new heights because of how high up you are. And you can get launched way out into the water. You could swim out of bounds, I guess. But yeah, this one's insane. I love it. There were also ways to use the vehicles that were built into the game to do other types of tricks, like wedge yourself in areas you're not supposed to go to, then clip into walls and stuff. It was a double-edged sword depending on how early in the game you did these glitches, because yeah, you could have an advantage being, you know, inside a wall that other players can't get to you in, but also you could get stuck inside of a wall and not be able to get out when the circle comes and you end up dying. You guys might remember earlier we talked about this Black Ops 2 glitch where you had to hit like a bunch of different kill streaks at the same time, or in like a certain order to like trick the game into moving the camera to the player. There's a similar glitch in Black Ops 4 where if you like hit the things while you have multiple kill streaks coming in and you're respawning, the game will try to respawn you over to where your little drone is, and it'll drop you on top of the map. This happens here on firing range, and this obviously gives you this up advantage against other players. Black Ops 4 was interesting because Nuketown in this game was like a snowy version of Nuketown taking place in Russia, and interestingly enough though, just like with other Nuketowns, if you run outside of the map and you get the little warning countdown, but you have a certain spot to stand in, there'll be sometimes a little safe area and you can keep yourself safe, like right here where you can stand here and the timer stops. Not too much to this one, but I mean the tradition carries on, I guess. Now I didn't play too much of Call of Duty Black Ops 4 Zombies back in the day. I just didn't care for the new zombie format all that much, but surely this counts as like a glitch, right? Like this isn't something that was intentionally put in by developers. I'm pretty sure this is just a random glitch that happens, but yeah, it looks pretty funny. It happens on the Blood of the Dead map, which is the remake of Mob of the Dead from Call of Duty Black Ops 2. When Black Ops 4 also first came out, there were a ton of like extra glitches, not just like little things left behind, but just like maybe things that were results of the game being put out faster than normal, or it didn't have the same polish phase that a normal Call of Duty game would have. So like when you're playing, like weird things that happen, like you'd look down at your body and see this weird conglomerate of what I guess your legs and torso are just below you, kind of off center from your body. We saw Black Ops 4 have a lot of other glitches, like the normal body spinning and stretching out like we've seen in other Call of Duty games. Of course it's present here. Sometimes players would have internet connectivity issues and they would get lagged out of the map, literally, where they're just under the map all of a sudden free falling to their death. But yeah, I don't know why. Black Ops 4 seemed to have a really big issue with the whole body stretching thing, especially on the Jungle remake from Call of Duty Black Ops 1. This one in particular seemed to have a lot of weird body stretching stuff going on. But I mean, yeah, after a while I could totally see this becoming completely terrifying for a player who did not know about this glitch and just sees a dead body flopping around and then stretching itself out in a weird contortionist type way. It's kind of terrifying. It can happen to zombies, and I don't know, I just love this thing. Like the fact that they'll just like be splayed out just across the sky sometimes. It's so weird. I don't understand fully why it happens the way it does. I understand it has something to do with the game trying to like move something out of another object, and for some reason maybe it overcorrects or overstretches before finally freezing up in a certain position. But yeah, it's insane. But yeah, this one happens in zombies mode or multiplayer or campaign if Black Ops 4 had a campaign. But we've seen it happen across all these Call of Duty games, and it still was very persistent in Black Ops 4, maybe more persistent in Black Ops 4 than other CODs. Also, while a lot of these would get patched out, I feel like Black Ops 4 was maybe the big starting point of a new era of glitches that would become commonplace in newer modern Call of Duty games. But we'll call it the UI glitches and bugs, where it just seems like weird things happen in the UI that aren't supposed to. Like in this instance, there's something going on here. Seems like the player is frozen in this like limbo state with these character models that just pop in randomly and are duplicated there for some reason. I don't know what this is. I think it's time we move on past Black Ops 4 for everyone's sake.
Now we're finally on Modern Warfare 2019. One of the best CODs in recent years, and kind of the Call of Duty did reignited my passion for Call of Duty, and I remember playing this one a lot. And while it was a very good game, it definitely wasn't free of glitches. For example, one of the major glitches I remember people using was with the deployable shield, where you angle it against like the wall or the object you want to climb up on, and then you look at it sideways and you kind of clamber on top of it and are able to clamber onto the next thing. You could use this to get over small walls or get onto rooftops and, you know, generally spots that you weren't able to get in before. So this deployable shield actually came in handy. Another very common glitch on Modern Warfare 2019 was where you jump on top the loadout drop that you just called in, and that would kind of make the loadout drop elevator you up, and you could jump off at the right time and get into structures or on top of structures like this chimney over here. And one thing I noticed is that even in Modern Warfare 2019, the thing where like if you are on top of the skybox and you walk over geometry that's supposed to be there, sometimes you're like way up in the air because the hitbox of the object is like way up, which is kind of interesting that this still persists here, and we've seen this in other CODs many times from COD 1 to now. Plus there was other methods with using the deployable shield and the care package, drop in, loadout, drop, whatever you want to call it, to kind of clamber and elevate yourself or lower yourself into the map actually, and you were just kind of able to walk around down here if you did this on certain maps. Also, Modern Warfare 2019 had a pretty good ground war mode that I actually remember playing a couple times, and there was a few glitch spots where you could get out of the map and pass the kill timer and just kind of glitch out. Also, did anyone here play that survival mode in Modern Warfare 2019? The one mode that was like exclusive to PlayStation for a year. So I never played it because after a year I was already on the new COD and I'm an Xbox player or PC player, so I never got into the survival mode in Modern Warfare 2019. But I heard it's pretty fun, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, there was multiple glitches you can do, like glitch spots that you could get into and you were kind of untouchable and you could just farm enemies up here. But there was also this glitch where you could use the ammo box and the armor box even and just have unlimited ammo and unlimited armor. To do this properly, you had to get really good at doing these very precise inputs after each other and not clicking too much and not clicking too little. But essentially, you would just be able to have unlimited ammo boxes and armor boxes that you could constantly spawn in, which was kind of neat. While I liked Modern Warfare 2019, the menu was absolutely horrendous. There was so many issues and glitches with this menu where it would like throw you back to the main menu and then you had to click again, or you had to restart your game over and over again for the menu to work. But there was connection issues, you couldn't join your friends. There was all this stuff going on, but sometimes there was funny glitches on the main menu like this, where your players just kind of show up as N64 models and it kind of looked funny. But sometimes also you would drop into certain game modes and the map wasn't loaded and it kind of looked like an N64 landscape. Generally, I feel like this game had a lot of issues with loading textures and generally loading the game. Now, Modern Warfare 2019 also featured the Infection game mode, and with Infection, there's always players looking for spots to hide in that they're untouchable by the zombies. And so there's a lot of little spots that you can get up on different maps and you can just kind of hide from the zombies. I mean, it's not always fair because if you don't know these spots, then I mean, what are you gonna do as a zombie? But I mean, unless you're constantly abusing them to win Infection games, which is kind of weird, there are kind of cool spots. This game also had a pretty good spectator mode, and with the spectator mode you could actually glitch out of almost every map. You had to change some settings in the custom game, but basically you could break the barriers with the camera and then switch to your loadout, which would spawn you in where the camera is, and then you can pass the death barrier if you're quick enough and you're outside the map, and this would work on any map. Also, with the introduction of Warzone, it had its own glitches. A lot of glitches were the same since Warzone 1 was mostly the same engine, but there was stuff like the helicopter freaking out when you would fly it sometimes, or weird glitches with your parachute when you were parachuting in. One time me and Elijah were trying to play Gunfight Tournament and we had this weird glitch where we signed up for the tournament, the match started, and we instantly won the whole tournament bracket and got like the emblem you would get at the end. I don't have any footage of this because this happened so long ago, but I don't know, it's really bizarre. Then I don't know if this one counts as a glitch, but basically there was this one map at the beginning, it had like a bridge in the middle, and if you spawn on one side of the map, you're basically never able to leave your spawn. The spawn trapping was so atrocious in this that they would actually take out this whole map out of the map pool for most game modes besides stuff like Infection, I think. Not quite a glitch, but I guess kind of a mess up by Activision or the developer. But yeah, this one was one of the most violating spawn trap maps I've ever played in a Call of Duty game. Also in campaign, sometimes objects would deload and you were just kind of able to walk over them as if they're there. I think in this example it's a car that's supposed to be there, but you just kind of float for a second.
Next, let's move on to Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which was an interesting Call of Duty game following up as a sequel essentially to the original Black Ops story, but you know, taking things further into Cold War. And this game was actually quite a bit of fun, I remember having, at least back when it released. This game also had prop hunt, and as we talked about earlier, the little prop hunt glitches that can come up from time to time sometimes persist. And there was a big issue on Nuketown where you could jump on a platform and then rotate your prop to an angle that technically shouldn't be allowed, and from there players could straight up hide their props under the ground or in near impossible to spot locations unless you knew about the location ahead of time. This would eventually get patched out of the game, but it made prop hunt pretty unfair on Nuketown for a while. On the original Zombies map that came with the game, that was like a remake of the OG World at War Zombies map, which was kind of cool, there was this like out of bounds zombie farming trick you could do to just like level up your weapons or get a ton of points and whatnot. And Luke was telling me that he had this crazy story of something that his friend did, so we just wanted to make sure we included that story here in the video.
So basically, Cold War was a pretty good Call of Duty, and I actually had some of my friends who I usually only play Counter-Strike with hop on the game as well, which is a rare occurrence for us to actually play Call of Duty together. But with Warzone at the time, you know, we're tropping sometimes and playing some multiplayer and gunfight and stuff like that. But there was one guy out of the group who was grinding for his life to get that camo, like the max camo you can get for zombies. I kid you not, for weeks I would hop on TeamSpeak, this guy would just be in there on his phone doing this AFK strategy. Like, I felt like he did it 18 hours a day, then went to sleep, woke up, did another 18 hours. It was crazy. It was basically like on the first Zombies map, you glitch out over here. I think he showed it to me once and he did a different technique than what I could find on video. But basically you get under the map and then you're able to shoot up and all the zombies come to you and you can just kind of be AFK there until you run out of ammo and you have to leave, but you can get back into the spot afterwards. But my friend would do this until he eventually got that camo. But I think on the way he also got shadow banned and we couldn't play with him or something. I don't remember, but like he was AFK farming so much that Activision even was like, this is a little suspicious.
Over on the campaign side of things, sometimes if you die in a certain way and you get a checkpoint and then you're moving and doing a lot of action right after loading from the checkpoint, the game will get confused with where your player model is and will sometimes like force you backwards. It's almost like a Tracer from Overwatch rewind situation, and it can be pretty disorienting, but an odd occurrence in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Also, over in the campaign, there's this one section where you're supposed to jump onto a turret and shoot at the enemies down below, but occasionally players would have this weird glitch occur where they jump on the turret and fall through the map and land down below into this little area that they're now stuck in. Kind of a weird glitch to happen, but yeah. On the one level where you go and infiltrate the giant compound with woods, sometimes there's a weird occurrence where people just start shadow boxing nothing. I mean, I think there's supposed to be an enemy here, but if the enemy doesn't load in for whatever reason, you end up getting this version of the animation that's pretty goofy. On the campaign level, brick in the wall, there's a couple of different ledges that you can actually walk along to get out of the map altogether. As long as you stay up on these ledges and you take out all the enemies ahead of time, you can make it over to this window. And from there, you can crouch through the window and get into this deloaded interior of some of these buildings. And you can go and explore a pretty big area, avoiding, you know, going back into the map. You can see through walls and get essentially pretty decently out of the map in places you're not intended to be able to access. Okay, now there's this pretty big glitch that's pretty impressive actually. It's a little confusing, so I'm not sure if I fully grasp how to do every part of it, but the YouTuber Exploit Theory did a video tutorial on how to do it. Essentially, you can force the game to load up a specific type of game type known as Fire Team, which essentially lets you trick the game into thinking it's a completely different game type than the game type it actually is loaded in. It's essentially an invalid game type. So once you load in on any multiplayer map, really, you load in like a domination type game after doing this glitch, and then you can use like a grenade or something to die, and then when you respawn, the game gets like confused and will drop you in with a parachute. What? Essentially, this allows you to bypass death barriers or go around and explore parts of the map that you normally would never be able to access. A lot of the time you can end up like really high up above the map, or you can go run way out of bounds and explore, and yeah, this is like a really cool thing that you can do. It doesn't have any like real effects in a multiplayer game, you can't do it, but for people who like exploring maps and seeing beyond the bounds, this is a really cool option. Over on the campaign mission, Nowhere Left to Run, if you load up on this level and you're in like that little intro sequence and you're going to the part with the car, if you save and quit and then reload the level, the game will actually unlock the ability to jump again, where normally in the campaign you can't jump until later on. Because you can now jump though in the section where you're not supposed to be able to jump, you can actually like do things like clamber up to this like fire escape and climb all the way up and get out of the map. And from there, you can go and run around and explore parts you're not supposed to see. There's some oddities, like a random dude just out there. And yeah, I love glitches like this. Over on Nuketown, there was once again another one of those out-of-bound locations you could run and sprint to that avoid the little countdown timer to kill you. And this is good for hide and seek with friends, maybe. You know, just getting to some weird little spot where they might actually never find you and you can mess with them. I don't know, I like that. Not 100% sure though if this one's been patched out already, but still, it's a cool spot. There's actually an interesting trick over on Raid where essentially if you do a combination of your kill streaks, again, like you could do all the way back in Black Ops 2, you could once again trick the camera into thinking that you are in a new respawn area, and from there you can get past this van and get to the outer sections of the map on the multiplayer level Raid. There's a few spots where this glitch works. You can either use it to get up to a higher level of the map that you don't normally get to, or you can go way out of bounds and explore different sections out there. Back in the campaign, you know that whole level where you're like a spy going undercover and sneaking around and whatnot? There are, for whatever reason on this level in particularly, a much higher chance that, for whatever reason, those old body stretching glitches that we talked about earlier on will they come back into relevancy here, and they can lead to some really interesting occurrences in the campaign side of things. Like what do you do when this happens? Like, I don't know how to explain this. Just in general, it seems like this campaign level specifically has a ton of interesting issues, and yeah, it's kind of goofy. Back to that level with woods where you're going into that huge compound, there's a section where this elevator comes down with enemies, but you can actually run inside of that elevator before the doors and elevator close and come down, and the enemies will just like pop in. It's just a little bit of a goofy moment. Over on that campaign level, Break On Through, if you're willing to do a little bit of clambering and a little bit of parkour, you can actually climb up onto this and then jump across to this and then use this upper area as an access point to run around like this whole large section and see what's on the out of bounds areas over here. This next one's not really the stretching glitch as much, or it might be similar, but there is an occasional glitch where enemies might just like freeze up in place and just get stuck there instead of falling to the ground like a normal dead body would. It kind of leads to some goofy moments or goofy stances like this. It might take you out of the realism a little bit, but hey, this is Call of Duty. What were you expecting? Also, some of you might remember one of the early levels in the game when you are at that big runway chase and there's the Jeep that you get in the back of. For whatever reason, some players had it when they were playing this campaign level where the Jeep just would despawn or leave without them, and then they were like in this weird limbo state where they're just kind of being dragged along. I don't know what's going on really. I just think that this one is one of those top tier glitches. A good one to just kind of like put the end cap on the Call of Duty Black Ops saga for now, because we're not gonna have another Call of Duty game for a little bit before we see the next Black Ops. But yeah, this marks the end of every Call of Duty Black Ops game from World at War all the way till now until, you know, the next big Call of Duty release. Alright, now it's time we move on to Call of Duty Vanguard, which released after Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. It was made by Sledgehammer Games yet again, and it was a return to World War II in the first time in quite a few years. Now, Call of Duty Vanguard was interesting because they introduced this odd MVP mechanic where players would see like the top 3 performing players, I guess, and then you got to vote for who did the best of the group. But sometimes this feature just straight up wouldn't work and would lead to some really goofy moments where none of the player models would load, but you would still see their animations play out, and it would look like this, and it's just like, what are we looking at here? Vanguard was notorious for its reputation of maybe not being the most polished Call of Duty experience out there. I mean, there were some goofy glitches. Like over in the campaign, sometimes the AI would get stuck and you would see them standing / walking in place, not ever going anywhere while you're like trying to hide in the bushes or something like that. On Numa Trail, there's like these little like posts, and you can stand on one of them and jump from the post to this invisible barrier that's above all of this like barbed wire, and from there you can just pretty much get out of the map and explore this section of the campaign. For a while there was this crazy glitch you could do where you put a bunch of explosive demolition charges right below one of those Goliaths, those like miniature tanks you could drive around, and if you had a group of players stand on top of the Goliath, well, they could launch the Goliath in the air and you could use it as an elevator, which is insane. I mean, just like, look at this. This is crazy. This easily could be used to access locations and parts of maps you're not supposed to get to, or just get out of bounds altogether, which is always fun. It was always funny, just some of the memes that people would post with Vanguard, you know, being the most competent and highly functioning video game that's out there. Like, just random things would happen sometimes, like character models falling to the floor. That old body stretching glitch reared its ugly head once again, and sometimes just weird weird things would happen, like dead bodies getting flung in the air like a tornado attack, or you'd be randomly playing and there'd just be some old body from earlier in the match still flying in the air a long time later, and you're just confused with what game you're playing at this point. There was an issue in the multiplayer side of things where you could call in a care package sometimes, and even if the care package wasn't moving anymore, if you got too close to it, the game would register some ghost movement or something, and the care package would just kill you, which is really annoying. It seemed like there was a lot of issues also in the campaign with just like the AI doing weird things or random things that maybe they're not intended to do, like start flying in the air. Vanguard is a Call of Duty game of all time, okay? Over on the multiplayer map Shipment, but it might have happened on other maps as well, sometimes there are instances where like a player would have some internet connectivity issues, and for whatever reason, after the connectivity issues were resolved, the player was just unable to damage or kill anyone. Like, no matter how much they shot them, they could still die, but they couldn't deal any actual damage, which is a really weird occurrence. Not like anything we've seen in this video so far. We get another amazing menu glitch here where sometimes the walking player models will just not load in correctly, and we'll have some weird thing going on here, like their hands glitching out. And then of course this game utilized the same engine that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 used, so a couple of glitches from that era did make their way into Vanguard as well, like sometimes things rendering in real time, which sometimes you could see the unrendered version of things. So like this cutscene, for instance, at first the character's face almost looks like it's a Nintendo 64 texture before it does come in and load in, which could be kind of horrifying when you're playing the campaign actually. Do you guys remember that one like house that's like over on the cliffside from the multiplayer? Sometimes there was a respawn point that would just drop you off of the map. Now this map in general already had respawn issues where it felt very unbalanced at times, but man, just dropping you straight to your death is a harsh way to deal with this. Okay, one thing I loved though about Call of Duty Vanguard was they finally brought back the map Castle from Call of Duty World at War. One of my favorite maps from back in the day, and they did a really great job at recreating it here and adding new visuals. And of course there are some glitches here, like you're now able to get on a different roof that you weren't ever able to get on beforehand, and then of course you can get on the main roof that you used to be able to kind of glitch onto, or we weren't sure if that counted as a glitch earlier in this video, but yeah, you can do that still on this version of the map too. Occasionally over on the zombies mode of Call of Duty Vanguard, there was this weird recurring glitch where players would, for whatever reason, have access to unlimited monkey bombs. What? I am proud of the player who clipped this because he just keeps throwing those and doesn't stop for anything. He's like, I have these unlimited monkey bombs, so I'm gonna use these unlimited monkey bombs. Hey, sometimes the game gives you a cool and helpful glitch. Other times though, other types of glitches could occur. Like in this case, a player just keeps dying, their teammate revives them, and then they just immediately die again, over and over and over. And there's nothing they can do to keep them alive. They just instantly go down again. It's really weird. And then on the default zombies map, there was actually this really cool glitch you could do for a little while, where if you clambered up on top of these boxes and made this very precise jump into this ceiling archway, you could sometimes clip your foot into the archway and essentially get access to the outer bounds section of this building, putting you in a relatively safe spot where the zombies can't get to you. You know, a kind of classic out of bounds zombies glitch.
Next we go to Modern Warfare 2 2022, which released in 2022, as I guess the name that I just said says. But whatever. This game was the sequel to Modern Warfare 2019, and it was an okay game. There was a lot of fun modes. Maybe it was lacking some content compared to the other ones, but there definitely was a few glitches in this too. Also, this would mark the end of Warzone 1, and Warzone 2 would be introduced, and Warzone 1 would eventually be shut down and completely be replaced with Warzone 2.0. The earliest glitch I actually remember that I did basically on release date was going into a private match and then clicking over to the COD League options and then editing my calling card and emblem, and basically all the emblems and all calling cards in this game were unlocked, and if you equip them here you would also have them in regular multiplayer. So this glitch gave me access to the calling card and emblem I wanted right away, and I would rock it. And if I remember correctly, it took them a long time to patch this out. This was like in weeks later still. And usually glitches are pretty fun, and you know, getting out of maps is pretty cool, but there was this really annoying glitch that I kept having early on in Modern Warfare 2, and that was that these light textures, like the minor lights, were so blown up on my gameplay that I couldn't see anything. It was like I'm getting flashbanged IRL by this like little LED light that's on the wall somewhere. And I remember it was like this big thing where I had to downgrade my graphics card driver in order to get rid of this, and it took them a long time to fix this as well. But I remember this would happen every other match or every 3 matches, and it was super annoying because I literally couldn't see anything. Then obviously cutscene glitches would also happen in MW2, and there was this one I found where Ghost just turns blue, and then the rest of the cutscene is just darkness until you get your hood taken off by whoever's in the elevator here. I forgot who that is. I played the campaign, but it was kind of not that memorable. But yeah, Blue Ghost was quite the sight, I guess. On the gunfight map Showdown, you can use a deployable cover to clamber up on this wall here, much like you would do in MW 2019, and then call in 2 more care packages on top of each other to clamber up on them, and then you can get to this high spot on the map. And you can put even another deployable cover up here to get some extra cover and shoot down into the map. How you would do this in a gunfight match is beyond me, because I don't think there's enough time to pull this off, but hey, still a cool little spot. Also, with insane teamwork, you could stack up a ton of airdrops and clamber up onto the map on Shoot House. But again, this is an insane amount of care packages and it takes a lot of, you know, players to do this. But hey, I mean, if you can pull this off in a live game, that is actually insane. Also, Modern Warfare 2 actually had some insane trick shot videos that I saw, and it was possible with this ledge launch you could do. Basically, you get onto a ledge, like let's say on the back of this car, and you ADS, and then you kind of start looking upwards, and eventually the game would correct your ADS upwards. And as it's correcting the ADS upwards, you mount, and this would launch you way up in the air. And I mean, if you wanted to, you could hit some insane clips with this, much like people would do back in the original Modern Warfare 2 days. So I thought this was kind of a cool part when Modern Warfare 2 came out. Also, there was a Zombies Royale event in Modern Warfare 2, which me and Elijah actually played a lot, and it was actually kind of fun. I hope they bring it back again this year. But there was this weird strategy you could do, and I'm not sure if it counts as a glitch or what it counts as, but I don't have any footage of it, so I can only describe it. But one of the maps had like this underground tomb, and we got into the situation where we were stuck basically in the underground tomb and we couldn't go anywhere because the circle was so small. But zombies kept pushing in and we kept getting like drops from them and health and stuff, and we just kept like stimming while like down there and trying to survive and outstimming the other team, which kind of felt unfair. But hey, I think that's how we won that round, and I mean, I'll take the dub. Also, this one happened to Elijah, if I remember correctly, but we were playing Warzone 2 and he was trying to snipe and he got up on this tower and he was like aiming and turning around. He just wasn't walking, he was just kind of in place, but eventually he just got kicked out of the lobby for being AFK, which there's a couple reports I saw this happening in Warzone 2 and MW2 specifically, so I guess that's kind of an annoying glitch. But also something in the back of my mind is telling me that this also happened in Warzone 1 to Elijah, so maybe he's just really unlucky with this. Now Modern Warfare 3 released in 2023 again, and this time it was kind of like an updated version of Modern Warfare 2 from the previous year, and it just added like a lot of new maps and a lot of new guns, and it recycled a lot of the assets, especially in campaign. But some of those new maps that were added were actually old maps like Terminal, and you could do this out of bounds strategy where you use the deployable cover to get up on this plant and then get up on the roof here and break through the glass, and then after a couple more jumps you have access to the roof of this. And this was patched pretty quickly, as Elijah told me, and I remember he actually did this when the game released in like a live game, and he was just like up there throughout the whole game, not getting any kills, and I think we lost. But that's besides the point. Another one me and Elijah actually messed around with when the game came out was this one on Subbase, where you hop on this deployable cover and then you walk along these wires until you get to this spot where you do a jump and you clamber on top of the roof, and you have access to the roof to stay up here, and you're pretty safe up here, unless I guess someone from down below looks up and shoots you. Also, with Modern Warfare 3 being pretty broken in general, there was a lot of glitches like this where you could get under the map, this one on Subbase, and you could just shoot players up top and you could basically just farm kills for free. This was also done with a deployable cover where you jump over this fence and then you drop down, and I don't know, it's just kind of cheap, this one at least, because I don't think you can get killed if you're down there, so you're just kind of using an exploit. But I mean, hey, it's an interesting spot nonetheless. Also, early on, when they introduced Gunfight, I think it came with Season 1, which was like a month after the game released. Don't quote me on that. But nonetheless, we're playing, and every time we would have a sniper, the sniper model just wasn't there. And the finger did like this weird like framing thing when you zoomed in. But hey, I mean, you know, I was still hitting some clips here and kind of popping off nonetheless. It looked really funny in my opinion, and they even made a little montage at the time that I posted on Twitter, which is not that funny, but I don't know. I just was fascinated by this clip, and hitting clips without a gun looked pretty cool to me. Also, with the way the new zombie mode worked in Modern Warfare 3, it was basically you do your challenges, your objectives, or whatever, like the quests, I don't even know. You do your stuff, and then you're supposed to exfil, call in a helicopter, and they'll pick you up. Now, at the time, there was this glitch that you could do, and you could basically ruin the exfil. And we did it a couple times, and I kind of feel bad for doing it. I gotta say, in hindsight, we did completely screw over these people, and they weren't able to finish their game. So I apologize to these people, but it was kind of fun doing it. Basically, the way this works is you get Juggernaut, and you call it inside the helicopter, and then the package falling down from the sky onto the helicopter of the Juggernaut will make the helicopter explode, and all that's left is the two people floating in their seats, and obviously your Juggernaut package. And there was one instance where we did it to them, and they were like, what the hell happened? What is this? And then we followed them to the next exfil, which was the last exfil, and we did it again. And then it just wipes everyone, and the lobby just ends. Which, sorry, my bad, but it was kind of funny, I thought at least. I take full responsibility because I am the one that saw the clip first, and then I was like, hey Elijah, we should try this, and I think we even got Dim in on it at some point, I don't even remember. But there was one night where we were just being menaces on Modern Warfare 3 zombies and ruining players' games. Also, another sign of how broken Modern Warfare 3 was that you could basically finish the whole campaign on recruit difficulty, but get credit for beating it on veteran difficulty at the same time. Basically, you load into the level, any level, on veteran difficulty, then as soon as you get control, you change the difficulty to recruit, then before the level ends, you change it back to veteran, and the game will count it as if you beat it on veteran, because all that matters is the last difficulty that the game registered at the end of the level. So yeah, I guess free veteran achievement in Modern Warfare 3. I don't know if it still works. It probably does. I don't know why they would patch it, or if they even know about this exploit. Or maybe this was intended, because nobody wanted to play that campaign. One of the newer maps, Tanked, also has a crazy out of bounds glitch where you just jump over this yellow tape, and then you run to this corner, and the death timer stops, and then you can climb up on the wall and get on this roof before the next death timer kills you, and here you are, you're outside of the map. And I think this is an issue with like those maps that are based on the Warzone locations, because they have to put on all these death barriers and stuff, and there's a lot of oversight with this big of a map. Also on the map 6-star, and I mean maybe other maps, I'm not quite sure, you are able to get God mode by putting down a tactical insertion and then at the last second switch teams, which will put you into God mode on the new team you just swap to. And then on this map you can jump over this railing, which kind of like drops you onto this lower thing, then you turn around, jump back into the map, or like the bottom of the map, and then you're under the map, and the death barrier stops there. And you basically have free access to be under the map, and once again you can exploit this pretty heavily and just get kills over and over again, and people can't really kill you because you're under the map.
And now this next one, if you're watching this far, is for those Call of Duty boomers out there, where we go all the way back to the older days of COD, and we're going to look at the first 3 Call of Duty games, because there were some very interesting glitches from all the way back then. Mind you, the quality once again on these parts is going to be a little bit sus, so bear with us, but I think we did a good job at trying to portray what happened in these old Call of Duty games. Okay, so this first one's kind of like a classic Call of Duty out of map glitch, but it's neat. If you get to this window here in the campaign and you jump across onto this little like roof where these shingles are, you can actually climb up and get over to this like little half wall that you can jump to, and then from there you can walk around and see out of the map. And if you just drop down and survive the fall, you have access to a pretty large section out of bounds. Like obviously you're in the void here, but it's interesting to see what the void looked like in these older Call of Duty games all the way back in the day. I always find it interesting though how some glitches have existed and persisted across all the years of Call of Duty, like enemies getting stuck in weird places. Like in this clip, there's someone who got their head stuck in the ground and they just kind of stayed there. That'd be their final resting place. Sometimes there's this weird occurrence that could happen in Call of Duty Classic, which is the like re-released version of the original game that came out on Xbox 360 to coincide with the release of Modern Warfare 2, but for whatever reason, on the 4th level of the game, it's supposed to wrap up in this little car ride, but sometimes the game will just soft lock and it'll never end, and you're just stuck in the car until you start your game over, and I don't know, that's just kind of awkward. This never-ending car ride you're locked into. I mean, the car stops, but you're still stuck there and just watching this guy's animations over and over again. Sometimes also in Call of Duty Classic, there'll be a weird glitch that'll happen where like the enemy player model will just freeze up mid-air and just kind of get stuck there, and that'll be their final resting place. Also, sometimes after certain explosions happen, objects that are supposed to look a certain way will have their textures oddly damaged, or a random different texture will load in on the object itself that's not supposed to be there. This happens especially after explosions, and it's just kind of a weird visual glitch. Also, while I was doing research for this, and it is hard to find old Call of Duty classic glitches. I found this video where some glitches do occur. However, I could not tell you at all by any means what I'm looking at. So this is just like a gem of, you know, the early recording days on YouTube, because I mean, if you guys can decipher what's going on here, more power to you. But yeah, this is a glitch. I feel like we have bigger issues in quality that we need to deal with. On the multiplayer map Harbor, there's actually a way you can get to a higher section on the map by essentially jumping on your teammate while they're prone here. You can get up onto this rooftop. Honestly, not a bad little spot to hide in and, you know, take some cheap shots at other players who don't know that you're up there. We found a random player that was stuck T-posing next to this tank for whatever reason. I mean, it's more of an A pose, I guess. I don't know. But nonetheless, he's not supposed to be there, I think. And yet here he is. The dude recording him even got a nice close-up of his face for us, so that was nice. On the multiplayer map Dawnville, there's actually some really cool higher up locations you can jump up to. Nothing that would necessarily bring you out of bounds, but still some trick shot spots that because you're up on a higher level, you now can, you know, shoot people when they won't expect you to be all the way up on top of a building. And really all you have to do is just pay attention to some geometry and make some jumps and you're up there. Also, sometimes when there's a lot of things loading in at the same time, weird occurrences can happen, like dead bodies falling through the floor, which happened in this clip, for example. Don't know why this one happens so often, but it does seem to happen a little bit occasionally in these older Call of Duty games. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to Call of Duty 2, I'm really grateful for this YouTuber, the COD Price, who took it upon himself to start recreating and recording a lot of the classic Call of Duty 2 glitches that not a lot of people remember or talk about. There's not a lot of documentation out there for these old Call of Duty games, so whenever we find like someone who's doing them again in high quality, it's really, really cool for historical archival purposes. Even if it's just simple ones like this one, where you can get out of bounds by walking along certain like half walls, which essentially lets you bypass large sections of the campaign level. There's this other interesting glitch where you have to normally climb up this rope and then you're up on top of like this hacksaw ridge type battlefield, and if you go and lay down in one of these little artillery bunker type things, you can actually see through the concrete right here and just see out of the map for whatever reason. You obviously aren't supposed to be able to clip through here and see here, but a little small thing that they maybe overlooked, and now we know that there's documentation of it out there. Over on this one nighttime level from Call of Duty 2, you can actually jump on some bushes that gives you access to jumping over this like barrier that would keep you from going out of bounds, and then from there everything's like fair game. You can run around, go through walls, and just go explore how far out you want to go. And yeah, also in Call of Duty 2, this game had that training mission where you play as the Red Army and you normally shoot some bottles. There's actually a way you can get out of bounds by just jumping on some of the geometry, climbing up, looking around, jumping over here, and then from there you can get outside of this wall and you get access to a little out of bounds area that you normally wouldn't be able to access. Then over in Call of Duty 2, the big red one, there's actually a really cool glitch you can do with the tanks, where if you drive one tank up against this wall and you get a second tank and push the first tank closer and closer to the wall, and you kind of keep going back and forth between the two, lining them up, you eventually will have the first tank floating up above the sky barrier of the map, and then from there you can jump out of the tank and now be essentially on top of the map up in this like sky barrier that you can walk on. You have to essentially keep yourself close to the geometry or above the geometry so you don't just free fall to your death, but still it's a neat little area that you wouldn't think you'd normally be able to do using tanks to get up to. This next glitch is kind of a throwback, but sometimes dead enemy soldiers will continue to scream even though they're dead, and that can sometimes be kind of terrifying, especially with these older graphics. I mean, just like look at this. Okay, then way back in the day in Call of Duty 2 on Bokage, there was this glitch you could do where if you had someone down below shoot at you with like a shotgun while you jumped across to this tree, the upward momentum of the shot would give you enough height so you could actually land on the tree. Then from there, you could do parkour to get to the outer bounds sections of the map and kind of see what's beyond the barriers of this map as well. This worked in a few instances, but it was just a lot of fun to have this like parkour type exploration that you had to do back in the day with your friends, and I kind of miss that aspect of glitching in Call of Duty games. There was also this really weird glitch where you could be climbing a ladder and there was some trick you could do, and I can't tell from this old video what exactly the trick was per se, but by doing this trick with a ladder, you could essentially free fly or clip your character forward because the game would think you're on this like never-ending ladder, and you could get out of bounds by doing this. And I don't know, I wish there was someone out there who knew how to do this glitch still all these years later who could teach me how to do it, because I feel like it'd be really fun to go back and explore Call of Duty 2 maps. But yeah, all we have is this like really old footage recording of it, and that's all we can really go off of. And then just like the glitch we talked about earlier from Call of Duty 2 Big Red One, there's another tank glitch you can also do on another map in Call of Duty 2 Big Red One, where you can park your 2 tanks here, push them forward, and the tank will glitch up to the upper level, and you can drive your tank on the rooftops of some of the buildings, which is just really goofy. Okay, now it's time we move on to Call of Duty 3. This one was released in 2006 and was the last World War II game before the jump to the modern era with COD 4, and then we would see like World at War and a few other World War II CODs later, but COD 3 was like the end of the classic COD era. The multiplayer map Eater Dam actually had quite a few little tiny glitches you could do that would give you a pretty unfair advantage. Like over here, you could jump inside of this rock and you could like crouch and see through the rock, and obviously people couldn't see you, so you could shoot out at them, which was, you know, pretty OP. But then you could jump even further back into this area and have more spots to kind of get an advantage on other players from. If you used a motorcycle, you could actually drive it up to some of the wall barriers sometimes and then clip through the wall barrier by lining yourself up perfectly with where the exit animation would take place. This would then clip you through the wall, and then from there you could hop up this little like mountain edge and get way up here, which is a pretty big out of bounds area, giving you, you know, a larger area where people won't expect you to be, where you can like snipe at them, or a little area to go explore, make your way to some rooftops if you wanted to. Either way, there were quite a few of these little glitches that would allow you to get to these little spots and locations, or straight up just get out of bounds of the map. And yeah, Call of Duty 3 was notorious for having quite a few glitches, especially because this was one of the games at the rise of like online multiplayer popularity. Like Halo had been popular for a minute, so people were trying Call of Duty online, and of course these exploits were used in online back then too. This was just during an era though where Activision was way slower at patching out these types of glitches, and like ongoing support wasn't as commonplace. Fuel was another map that a lot of people had a ton of fun glitching out of bounds on. They'd utilize things like rocket launchers to elevate themselves to new heights and jump up just slightly higher than what like the player was actually supposed to be able to do. There was also some places where you could just straight up walk out of the map if you wanted to, or get up to upper levels of the rooftops and whatnot by just jumping on some precise geometry. Like a lot of the times debris and blown up walls would actually inadvertently lead into being used as a ladder essentially to climb upwards. And yeah, that was something that was used a lot in games like Call of Duty 3 back in the day too. There's also this really funny glitch back in the day where essentially if you had like a machine gun and you like held down the aim button while entering the tank at the same time, the game would misinterpret which weapon you're supposed to be shooting next and would shoot the tank at the same fire rate that the machine gun would shoot at, which can lead to some hilarious shenanigans when you have a tank that's shooting as fast as a full automatic Browning machine gun. It also seems like in Call of Duty 3, sometimes if there was maybe internet connectivity issues or just some weird stuff going on in the physics, if you were driving around in that motorcycle that has a little buggy next to it, sometimes you would just get launched up in the air. I don't fully understand why this worked. I tried to look into it. Some people were saying it was a lag switch. Other people were saying it was a glitch. So I'm not 100% sure on this one, but I do know that it looks fun to watch. Okay, so we've looked at the glory days of Call of Duty. We've looked at the modern era. We even went back and looked at the older games. So what else can we possibly look at? Call of Duty 4 on the Nintendo DS. Now, this game in itself feels like one giant glitch. I will say the DS Call of Duty games got better with time, but Call of Duty 4 on the DS was a learning period for handheld Call of Duty games. Nonetheless, there still are glitches from this era of Call of Duty. For instance, on the multiplayer map Cargo Bay, there is like a trick where you can kind of line yourself up while you're on these stairs, and if you drop down at just the right angle, you can clip underneath the stairs, which gives you a pretty cool hiding spot. But that's not where the glitch itself ends, because that wall where you're not supposed to access under those stairs actually lets you clip right through it. So from there, you can then gain access to the entire map, but from the out of bounds area, which is pretty neat. There's this random glitch that sometimes can occur in COD 4 where when you have a rifle and you go and you pick up a dead enemy sniper rifle, the sniper rifle will just shoot like an Uzi. Why? This is kind of cool, honestly, but yeah, I don't know why. It's pretty accurate, it seems, though, so hey, it's a cool little thing from the COD 4 DS days. Honestly, there's other glitches out there from Call of Duty 4 DS as well, like some of these glitches that I found in this video from 2009 where someone used unregistered Hypercam 2 to record their gameplay footage, and I can't really tell too much what they're doing, but I do see that at some point by kind of standing in the geometry a certain way, they're able to clip through walls, and I think that that's kind of like a good explanation for how breaking out of maps in COD 4 DS mostly work. You kind of messed with inclines and declines, put yourself in the right spot, and then just kind of phase through walls. These videos from 2009 though, wild to look back at. I haven't played too much of COD 4 DS to like test fixed all of these glitches, but similarly on the multiplayer map docks, there's a way that you can get inside of this box, which makes you invisible to people on the outside, but you could shoot out at them. But you know what? Let's move off of Call of Duty 4 DS and move to the next DS Call of Duty entry, Call of Duty World at War for the Nintendo DS. This one I did have back in the day, and I think I remember trading in games at GameStop for and was probably a little disappointed. Nonetheless, there are some ways you can get out of maps in the campaign. Like for instance, if you look at like this cliffside or other geometry that does some weird things with like inclines and declines, and essentially just press your character model up against a lot of surfaces and continue to walk forward while looking up, sometimes you'll just phase through the map and you can continue on the other side. Like for instance here, you can see this like flowing river from underneath and the entirety of the skybox in the area. YouTuber Squid Mac managed to push his way all the way out of bounds to see the map in the distance, and he just kind of chills out there outside the map for a while. Over in the campaign equivalent of what Macon was in World at War, or Macon Day maybe? I mean, this is like very inspired by Macon Day from the main game. If you're in these little huts, you can use the inclines on the stairs once again, just like COD 4, and walk up and down against them and crouch, and essentially sometimes you can clip underneath the staircase and then you can run around in the out of bounds section in this area as well. On the multiplayer side of things, there's a few other little glitches you can do in World at War. World at War was much like the Call of Duty 4 equivalent on the Nintendo DS, and essentially by going to the leveled trenches, you can climb up and down the ladders and adjust your standing to see through the floor in some certain parts of this multiplayer level. Call of Duty Modern Warfare Mobilized, which essentially was the Modern Warfare 2 for Nintendo DS, was actually a bit interesting. There were some improvements in just the general quality with this game moving forward into the other DS titles that Call of Duty released, but Modern Warfare 2 DS, a little bit interesting. There was a newer technique that was discovered that allowed you to glitch out of pretty much any campaign mission that you wanted to, where you would stand in a specific place and then you would save and quit out of your game by powering off your DS, and sometimes when you loaded your game back in, you'd be standing in a place that would let you then clip through a wall and get out of bounds. This allowed for some cool glitching and out of bounds exploration, I guess. Nothing too substantial, but a little bit neat. I also found another video of someone glitching out of a multiplayer map doing, I think, just the similar stair trick from the older games. But what's interesting is their video of exploring the map was uploaded on some interesting quality, but had that good old-fashioned 009 Dreamscape music playing, which some of you may remember from Call of Duty videos back in the day. We can't play it here because, for whatever reason, that song gets copyright claimed on YouTube nowadays, even though it was the de facto go-to copyright-free song back then. Nonetheless, it was interesting seeing this. The video was also called COD 6 Modern Warfare 2 Riverbed Glitch DS New. I love seeing this game called COD 6 Modern Warfare 2. Just hits the right way. We talked already pretty extensively about a lot of the glitches from Call of Duty Zombies, but Call of Duty Black Ops DS introduced Zombies mode as well, and there were a couple of glitches that translated onto the DS version of this game, even if Zombies was completely different. Like for instance, Call of Duty Black Ops DS Zombies had barrier zombie glitches, just like we saw in the main games, but translated here on the DS. Also, there was another weird glitch where you could utilize grenades on crawlers a certain way and then shoot the zombies, I guess, and it would make the zombies do this freeze type glitch where they would walk slower than normal and not attack, which apparently was used for players who were trying to like get back into the barrier glitch that we just looked at a second ago. And then apparently on the zombie map facility, there was a glitch you could do with grenades to get up on this couch, which would then give you access to the rest of the map, but not in the way that the game would expect you to go through the map. So zombies will continue to only spawn in through one area, making it pretty easy to, you know, have a concentrated flow of zombies all coming from one direction instead of coming from like all different directions. Oh, also on the map Temple, someone found a way to just fully glitch out of the map by like pushing up against the walls on these like little bars here and just fall forever until they restarted their DS, I guess. Well, what an interesting glitch. I don't know how useful it is, but interesting. I think at this point, Call of Duty sales on the DS were starting to slow down maybe a bit. There weren't as many videos I noticed, mostly just zombies related videos, honestly, for Black Ops DS. And similarly, I noticed the same thing with Modern Warfare 3 with people reporting glitches. Not nearly as much as the older COD DS games, but I did find one person uploaded a glitch that they found when playing through the campaign where if they like walked into this like wall or something that pushed them forward. I don't really know fully what I'm looking at here. The video was originally uploaded sideways and we of course flipped it and adjusted it, zoomed in, enhanced the best that Luke was able to figure this one out for. And it looks like if you push enough though, you fall right under the map. At least we have Modern Warfare 3 DS represented in this video by just this one glitch. It's something. But that wraps up our DS era of Call of Duty glitches. Unfortunately, they never made like a Black Ops 2 DS. This was the end of that era, and other types of Call of Duty games would pop up instead that were these spin-offs for other player bases other than the mainline games. The PlayStation Portable had Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified, which released, and it actually even had, in the multiplayer side of things, a little miniature version of Nuketown. Now, I looked at this YouTuber, The Glitch Vault, who just a year ago actually went in there and showed off a glitch that he wanted to show, and apparently there's a way you could do this prone launch on the staircase that just launches a player in the air. You can see the player falling in the background here. It's pretty incredible. It essentially has something to do with going prone in one direction and then going prone in another direction. So like prone in a corner, jump in the air, and prone. It's easier to do with 2 players. You could do it with a care package, I guess. But yeah, something interesting about Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified you might not have known about. Some of you might not even know that Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified was a game that existed. Also, I found out there was this multiplayer glitch if you used the stakeout when playing like an online match, where you could like double tap your reload and get stuck in this like reloading loop. It looks like this. And apparently it could mess up your gameplay. So that's something that existed. Also in Black Ops Declassified's campaign mode, or whatever the equivalent is, on the one map that takes place on Havana, there was a trick you could do where you like jumped on this little cabinet and then knifed, and the game would try to lunge you at a combatant far away, which I think would actually either clip you off of the balcony out of the map or clip you past like a loading zone or something that would load in the rest of the map. And essentially it gives you access to these streets that aren't fully loaded incorrectly, and then from there you can go run around, mess around with the map and see how the level works without playing the level the way you're supposed to. Kind of a neat one. I honestly forget about Black Ops Declassified existing a lot, and it's cool to see this become relevant for whatever reason it is. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look back at some of the weird spin-off games or outliers besides the DS games that we didn't really have a specific place to put in this video, and we'll just talk about those for a little bit too. Like Call of Duty Zombies for the iOS. This was a thing for a while, but on the Kino der Toten version of Zombies iOS, there were actually a couple of little weird corners that you could interact with and kind of stand behind, and the zombies temporarily wouldn't be able to hit you. So if you're really good at this version of Zombies, you would usually know where some of those little corners were, and whenever you were training zombies, you'd be able to kind of hit that corner, reload for a second, survive a few things that normally would hit you, and keep going pretty much unscathed. You could also get out of bounds on the Zombies map Ascension by walking over to this like little fence area and staying lined up with the fence. You can clip through this truck and then continue to walk until you see essentially this little out of bounds section over by this wall, which you can then walk to and clip out of the map. In the PS2 version of Call of Duty World at War, which had a separate campaign altogether from what you would see in a normal copy World at War, there was some weird glitches where the AIs would just go insane in close quarters combat if they were like pitted against each other, and sometimes it could lead to some goofy glitches happening like this. Also in Call of Duty World at War Final Fronts for the PS2, there was this weird glitch occasionally that would happen where your gun would just despawn, but you'd still be holding your hands up like you were holding a Thompson, for example. On Call of Duty Black Ops for the Wii, there were certain platforms and areas that didn't have as much detail as like the main console releases of these games. For instance, on the Wii version, if you lay down here on firing range, sometimes a lot of your body would be concealed because the texture is rendered weirdly or something. I don't know why it does this, but also the player model looks goofy, just in this, for example. In Call of Duty Roads to Victory, there's a chance that there'll be an enemy who is like stuck in this burning truck who will allegedly still be alive trying to kill you, but not really, and his head is like weird head bob looking thing. Yeah, I don't know. Call of Duty Roads to Victory was an interesting game. There were some other weird glitches along the way, like sometimes the AI would be completely blind to the player, even if you're an enemy and you're literally standing right next to him. There was another Call of Duty spin-off game, Call of Duty Finest Hour, and yeah, sometimes the AI in this game wasn't the best either, and they would get lost or just caught up on some stuff, whatever this is. There was this other glitch where honestly I couldn't tell you how this glitch happened, what's going on in this video. I just found it and I was like, wow, this is definitely one that we have to include, even though I have no idea what's going on. I think a tank is spinning around and the textures are smearing or whatever. There's like a void space so no textures are loading there, and it's making this weird visual effect. But yeah, I wouldn't know how to recreate this specific glitch. Then there's Call of Duty Jackal Assault, which was a VR experience that released to coincide with the launch of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and one player had this weird issue happened when they were playing where none of the other friendly characters were showing up, and then things just started to get real weird after a while. Like, their screen was shaking, then their whole ship was shaking, and it seemed like the textures were even coming off of the ship itself. I don't know what's going on here, but it's insane. Over in Call of Duty Mobile, there was actually a cool glitch in Shinonuma, that zombies map from World at War back in the day, brought back again into this Call of Duty, where you can actually get up on top of this ledge and zombies can't get to you. Kind of a cool little trick to survive zombies. Also, for a while, there were a couple of glitches in Call of Duty Mobile that seemed so, like, obvious, like things that maybe they should have caught that they just didn't catch somehow, that existed for quite a while before they were patched out. But yeah, you could literally put a shield down and just stand on top of the shield and then crawl through a window and get through a wall sometimes. And it's insane how those were in the game early on before getting patched out, that they didn't catch these types of common glitches that were essentially in even the oldest Call of Duty games. And I can't believe it, but that wraps up our 3 hours of Call of Duty glitches video. Finally, we had a lot of fun making this one. If you enjoyed it, maybe subscribe for more videos like this whenever we put them out. We do a lot of long form content, so if you like stuff to watch while you do other things, this content's great for that. So maybe give us a subscription. You can also check out our 3 hours of Halo glitches we did a while back. It's a pretty good video too. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Huge shout out to our patrons making these videos possible, and we'll see you next time with a new upload.